Good. How are you?
Good. I didn't see you pop up on my thing. I didn't know if I couldn't invite you or if it
No, I
took a
was
sec.
a few minutes behind. I was grabbing
Okay.
water and kombucha and stuff and getting settled.
Oh yeah, Sam, I just got my little kombucha. What flavor do you have?
I have orange and turmeric. It's called Rye.
Ooh. Oh, that's a cool brand.
Yeah, we there's this outlet place. They get like excess quantities of produce and all sorts of stuff. So I get these things. They're two for $3, and they're
Oh, that's
super
awesome.
delicious. Yeah.
Cool. I actually did get these for free. I got these. I worked at this thing and the company was there. And
Mm.
I guess they were giving out a bunch of samples. And at the end, they had so much left. They're like, here, take 2 cases. So I
That's
literally
all.
was carrying 2 cases of kombucha into my car. What
Can
are we
never have
drinking? We're
enough
drinking
kombucha.
kombucha. So,
Kombucha.
um, I don't know if you've done lives with other people before. Um,
Yeah, kind of. Mostly just like
so
randoms.
So it's a little, when you have the split screen, it's interesting because I will only see comments that people who clicked on through my side, and you're only going to see
Gotcha.
comments of people on your side. So if you want to answer any of the questions, um, just read it out loud because I won't see the same questions as you guys. And
Cool.
the same thing I think with like the people in the room, we're going to see different amounts of people who are here.
Yeah.
Um, Cool. Well, I'm glad we're doing this. I really like your stuff. I like you have a lot of stuff about angel numbers. That was what I just posted about was your angel numbers video. That was really good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
someone's
that's
asking on my side if you could talk about 444 and you literally just did a video on that, didn't you?
yeah. I think so 444 is like it's a very sturdy number. It's like a number of action and like stability. It's also a number that the archangels are with you, if I'm
Mm.
remembering correctly. But yeah, four is a very sturdy number. It's a number of work. It's a sign that it's time to put in work. It's time to grind essentially, and whatever you're putting your effort into is going to manifest abundance into your life.
Wow. So, do you know about this thing? And I only know this because my friend used to live in China she lived there for like a year. And apparently in China, 4 is like the bad number. So, like, like we say, like the 13th floor here, and 13 is our bad number.
Yeah,
4 is the bad number there.
that's
So,
so weird.
and the last 4 digits of her phone number were 444. And she said people would always gasp in China when they would say, like, they were like, don't you want to change your phone number? She's like, no,
Do
I
you,
love it. I love the number 4.
do you know why four is a weird number over
No,
there?
why?
I don't know. I have no idea.
I feel like
No
you're a
clue.
number. I was like, no, why? Tell me. You're like a number genius.
Yeah.
So
No.
are you specifically into numerology, or is it kind of something just through your spiritual journey that you've come across?
Um, Numerology is like part of it. I think a lot of what I post on my channel is it's very all over the place. There's
Mm-hmm.
not like one specific niche thing that I kind of tune into. Uh,
Mm,
in general, it's like I've talked about aliens, I've talked about numerology, I've talked about the vortex math with the actually the video that you just did there
yeah.
where you shouted out one of my videos. That's vortex math. That's some pretty powerful stuff. Um, yeah, honestly, it's anything spiritual, anything to do with the awakening of humanity at this present time, and that
Nice.
it's kind of all encompassing at this point. There's so many things that kind of fall into that category of people going through their awakening process, and my goal is to connect as many people as I can back to their highest power. That's like one of my purposes in this life. One of my highest purposes in this life is I'm a connector, and I connect people using my words, using
Mm,
um, that kind of stuff. And I've been told that I'm not psychic medium per se. I do have some abilities that I can tap into, but I've spoken to quite a few psychic mediums, and every single one of them has told me, without any information given to them, that I'm a star seed and that my purpose here is that I'm a connector. And
Wow.
so I'm fully embodying that. I've
I love it.
put my thoughts, my words out there.
So a lot of people on my side are saying that the number 4 in Chinese sounds very close to the word for death in Chinese. So the
Oh,
number gets associated with death because they sound similar. So that's what a bunch of people are saying here. So that makes sense.
interesting. Huh.
Um,
Good to know.
That's cool though. Like, I know that there's like a lot of different, I mean, I don't know like the full list of them, but I know like being a connector is kind of like one of the roles of star seeds. Also like activator,
Mm.
I usually have people like psychic people tell me that I'm like an activator, that it's like, that it's kind of like a spark. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
here you go, here's the spark. Now, enjoy your way down the rabbit hole with that.
Yeah. And I think it's super cool that one thing I really like about TikTok compared to Instagram, YouTube, I find that there's so many people here on TikTok that are tuned in and they're waking up. And I don't know what it is. I mean,
I think it's the
I'm
algorithm is really
it
good.
has to be the algorithm, right? But one thing that I find different, so if you go onto YouTube and stuff like that, like I see a lot of strange comments come from YouTube.
Oh yeah.
And if I look at other creators who make similar content, I see so many people in the comments that are positive. They're like uplifting. They're like, I'm awakening. I have lots of older people comment on my videos. They're like boomers, and I'm like, and they're fully into it, and they're waking up. I'm like, well, I
And
guess
I
better
love
late than
it
never,
too.
right?
I think it's a misconception so much about the whole boomer thing. I mean, I hate anything that's divisive. It's so dumb.
Yeah, yeah.
Like people will be like, okay, boomer. It's like, okay, you trendy will say anything that's popular person. Okay. Like, and I mean, I've seen a couple people kind of try to do that with like towards Gen Z too. And it's like, really? You're going to come for
We're all
people in their
humans.
early 20s. Like there's
We're all
something
human.
like people in their early 20s are really responsible for anything that's wrong in the world. Like, hello. And we got that. I
Yeah,
don't know if you're a millennial. You're probably a millennial, right?
yeah.
Yeah, me too.
31.
And we got that type of like hate early on. We were like 19 years old getting blamed for everything that was wrong with the world. We're like, really? We just got here. We
Millennials,
literally
you
just
damn
got here.
millennials are ruining everything.
It's true. They're like, oh, the millennials are making everyone soft. It's like,
Yeah,
okay, we're just gonna stop allowing people to like be abusive though.
yeah, I feel that. Yeah, no, it's just, and when I use the term boomer, I mostly just mean like if you, a lot of older people, and this goes into like
That is a real
psychology and
word for
stuff
the
like that.
generation.
Yeah, yeah, and it when you look into like the psychology of like how the human brain works, once you hit a certain age, it's very difficult for you to change your thinking and change your patterns and stuff like that. And so a lot of these older people who grew up in a world where there wasn't, we didn't have TikTok, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have people sharing the information that we're sharing. Um,
They
a
had
lot of that
three
stuff was,
channels on TV. They
yeah,
had three channels to get
good
information
old
from.
the good old television. Yeah,
You can't really
the
blame them either, too. People want to blame boomers for everything that's wrong with the world, too. And it's like, can you really blame them? They had a newspaper, three TV
exactly.
channels, and were literally already parents by the time they were 19, 18 years old. Like, can you really
Yeah.
blame these people for everything that's wrong
No,
with the world? It's
no.
wild.
You can't blame the general population. Yeah, like when it comes to if you're gonna put blame on anything, I think it would go to the elites, the people who've been
Yeah, the
controlling the world,
1%, the people
the
who
royal
actually have
bloodline.
been behind this,
Yeah,
the people who've been behind it for thousands of years.
yeah, Yeah, no, it's but it's cool to see the older generations shifting their mindset and shifting the way that they're seeing things and doing things, and just in general, the human population is shifting. And uh, I don't like to get too much into it on TikTok, but the recent events of the last couple years have really taken a lot of people and shaken them awake. And a lot of people are
Mm-hmm.
seeing things that they never saw before and realizing things that they never saw before. And I think it's really cool that something like that, where it's very controlling and very manipulative and divisive, has actually had the opposite effect on people. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of a blessing in disguise in a way.
I think so. And I mean, I like a lot of different channeled information too. So like I take in from a lot of different places. And one of the things that I had heard early on in all of the lockdowns and everything was that the things that I had heard early on in all of the lockdowns and everything was that because everyone was like, oh, this is the dark agenda. This is the dark agenda. And yes, there was parts of it that were, but then I saw a lot of things that was like, this is also a light agenda too, because people needed to be pulled out of their day-to-day lives. People weren't going to be able to gain a new perspective staying in the same thing. And that goes back to what you were saying about how it's harder. I'm sorry, there's like helicopters. This is what they do. And they're not here for me. They're just here all the time. Um, but basically they like that's like what Joe Dispenza says too, that basically if you don't do things every day to change up your pattern, then by 35 you're done. Like you basically have fully developed into everything that you're capable of being. So like he even says down to like you getting out of bed in the morning. If you get out of bed the same exact way every morning and then you get followed by the next thing, the same thing, the same thing, the same thing, how are you going to change anything in your brain or in your life, your lifestyle? So I think it goes back to, like that too. It's like basically you had to break up the daily routine. People had to stop getting out of bed at the same time, stop going to the same job for the same amount of hours, seeing the same people was the only way that people were going to have that shift in their brain. They had the space to think. And also, that's how you create new pathways.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was talking to a friend about this early on too, and it's very easy in the 9 to 5 lifestyle to be distracted from your emotions and your internal monologue because you're on autopilot for the most part. Most people are, anyways. And you get up, you go to work, you go. Lots of people go out for drinks after work with their workmates, and then they go home and they watch TV or they distract themselves with social media. They go to bed. There's no time to sit with your emotions and with your subconscious thoughts and programs and anything like that. Uh, and what I found was that a lot of people, like you were saying, they're changing that pattern because they now have time to sit with
Mm-hmm.
themselves. A lot of people were forced to stay home. Uh, and when you've got nothing to do, you're gonna think. You're gonna,
Yeah.
it's
And it's just like, too, it makes you, I mean, for me, the biggest thing, too, is that I had worked literally from the day I was like 15 years old until basically 32 years old, worked almost every day obsessively. And basically, when everything like got locked down, that was the longest I ever had off of work. And it was like at that point, I was like, wow, I'm a human being and I deserve more than this, And
yeah,
it was like, and that led me to eventually quit my job. And I haven't been, I mean, I don't completely not work, but pretty much mostly not work now. Um
yeah,
I still do, like, I mean, the universe comes through. I'm a believer that the universe, instead of like working obsessively, I'm like, you know what? The universe will always bring me what I need. And I needed to really 100% trust in it, not just like convince myself that that's what I'm thinking and like really
yeah,
release it. And it has, like, as my bills are coming up, and I always get like hired for the most random stuff because I've just had so many jobs that people will be like, "Oh, could you come and like do this thing at this event for like I just need someone responsible to be able to like handle this." So things will always come through, and I think that that's another thing too that like we everyone in that like breaking from that work cycle, you have to trust that the universe is going to provide for you when you need it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I'm pretty much in the exact same position that you are. I've been working, paying rent since I was 15, and for the most part, worked all the way through, and then that stuff happened. And pretty much since then, I have been working on building my own businesses, my own brands. I started up a landscaping company. I
Oh,
do
cool.
like custom garden building. I do stuff with social media. I have some online shops and stuff like that. And there's definitely been points where it's been difficult and things have been tough.
Yeah.
But like
It
you
can
said,
get a little
that like
scary. Mhm. It's such an intense emotion. And you know how much, obviously, thoughts, words, emotions, and actions are the creation code. So if you have
yeah,
doubt, doubt can be so powerful and so scary. Like, doubt could be overwhelming.
yeah. But when it comes down to it, when it comes down to needing something, something always comes up.
It's true.
I'm always taken care of, and I know, same mindset. I'm like, hey, the universe has my back. We got this. Just keep growing, keep building, keep doing what you're doing. You're shifting out of the old into the new, and yeah, it's been working pretty good. So
Yeah. And it's really like, you have to fully trust in it because I talked about this in like my Earth Shift series, and it's about like the timelines that basically, if you have a feeling of doubt, you create a doubt timeline, and now you're on the timeline that you're trying to manifest, and then also a doubt timeline, and you're basically ping ponging between the two, and most likely you're not going to fully manifest what's on that timeline that you want because you're ping ponging between that and the doubt timeline. And it's like
yeah,
the doubt can be a huge, and so it's easy to actually manifest a doubt timeline with just that thought that we're programmed to have, like, am I going to have enough, am I worthy, am I going to pull it off, is it going to work? And
yeah,
sometimes those questions can like send so much emotion, and then you're basically manifesting exactly what you are trying to not manifest.
yeah, yeah. And a lot of that doubt comes from subconscious programming. And you'd mentioned Dr. Joe Dispenza before, and he reading his books changed my life. He brilliant
Mm.
man. I love his work. I love his books. Um, and one of the things that I really took away was the how the subconscious mind runs everything. It runs everything in your life. It manifests everything in your life. And in order to get rid of that doubt, you need to find where that doubt is coming from. Where was it placed into your subconscious programming? At what point in your life? You need to find where those roots go down and you need to uproot it. If you just cut it off, it's going to keep growing, right? Like most
Mm.
plants, you cut it off and a new shoot comes out.
Yeah.
And that's like your conscious mind being like, "Oh, I've got this. I can get rid of the doubt." But if that's cutting it off, right? You got to get down, dig into the roots and uproot it so that that doubt, that subconscious programming is gone. It's out of there.
Hmm. So I don't know if you are familiar with Ken Honda at all. He wrote a book
Mhm.
called Happy Money, and I also did like an online course of his, and it was just like so helpful because it's a whole thing about like kind of reframing how you view money, and
Yeah.
basically, oh, that's nice. Someone sent me 369 on the Cash App. That was very sweet, Olivia. Um, so uh yeah, so he basically, in the course, they do this exercise where you find the source of your money wounds,
Mhm.
and you basically reframe them through meditation. And it's so interesting because, wow, is it still bright out there? And you said it's 9 p.m. where you are?
9:25. It's the sun's almost set.
That's crazy. Wow. Where are you? In like a weird like
I'm in
place where it's
Winnipeg. I'm in the
oh,
prairies.
so you're a lot more north. That's why it's still
Yeah.
at 9:30 at night. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I was
Southern
so distracted
Manitoba.
by that. I was like,
I'm like right kind of near the border of the United States and Canada. And then it's like right in the middle of Canada, so it's flat prairies everywhere. So we get sun.
mm.
Our sunsets are crazy here too.
Does your sun rise super early?
I think right now it's rising around 6 a.m.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So pretty normal, but it's a long day. Someone was asking about the Silva method. I love the Silva method. That's the type of meditation that I do, um, which is great. It's a really good form because you basically, same thing, you use numbers and you basically do, you'll train yourself 3, 2, 1. It's a whole process. That's obviously very simplified, but to bring yourself to alpha waves or theta waves. And my friend, she's on TikTok, Road to Roses. She does brain scans and she's actually seen people do the Silva method under a brain scan. And she's like, it's absolutely working on the brain. And that was like a
Sweet.
question that I had. And it's amazing. That's how the universe works, is that then I meet a person who does brain scans and does the Silva method and has seen it under a brain scan.
How do you spell that? Silva?
Uh-huh.
Silva?
And it's, yeah, it was
So-
created by Jose Silva. It's honestly, I think it's the best form of meditation, at least for me. It's an active meditation, which I really like. I don't like the necessarily the mindlessness. They call it mindfulness, but it's really like mindlessness of like completely silencing all thoughts. I feel like that's a little frustrating, trying to
Yeah.
completely silence your thoughts in meditation. And
I have
I
ADHD,
also,
so that's difficult.
yeah, and I also feel it's a little counterproductive because when I'm meditating, I'm actually like trying to do something, like I'm not trying to do nothing. And I know the whole nothingness is, good or whatever, but that's not what I'm trying to do when I'm meditating. I'm trying to get inspiration, the answers, healing. I want all the good stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a cool method because it's considered an active style of meditation. And it actually, your brain goes like, it kind of like, because you go to like the alpha waves and the theta waves, you basically go into the flow state. So
Yeah.
then you can just receive whatever information is needed. And when you get very advanced at it, I'm not there. But they say, this was the reason I actually learned it, was because of this. I'm not there yet though. That you could, if you get into that flow state, get yourself into theta, you could read a book just by holding it, because
Oh,
all the information is in the world. So you could
yeah.
retrieve all of the information, hold the book in that theta waves, and receive the information from the book. So that would save me a lot of time.
That's like what Nikolai Tesla and Einstein would talk about pulling in
Mhm.
information from the universal consciousness, right? They would tap into that. That's where Nikolai Tesla got a lot of his invention ideas from, his free energy and stuff like that. He pulled from that source, that knowledge. And you were talking about the money wound thing. Uh, I'm reading a book called
Oh,
Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, and
oh,
it
cool.
taught it touches on that.
And who is the
They call it a
writer?
money. T. Harv Eker.
Oh, cool.
Stanford, I think, but yeah, they call it a money blueprint, and it dives deep into
Ooh.
um, basically your how you are programmed through childhood, and there's kind of like two spectrums. People either follow exactly the way that their parents were with money, or the complete opposite. So
Ooh.
and it taught you basically it guides you through to figure out what your money blueprint is and how you have what you've taken from your parents and the way that they were with money and or what you've completely rejected and kind of where your
Mhm.
mental emotional and energetic blocks are and how you can manifest more money and all that stuff. It's
Oh,
a great
that's
book.
really
So
cool. I
yeah,
have to check
so
that
very
out.
similar.
And now actually that you're mentioning it, in the Happy Money book, they talk about there's three types of people when it comes to money. And I can't remember them. I don't want to butcher it, but basically one of them is kind of like a person who has a good relationship with money. It's like another word for it. It's very like explained, but that's the simplified. There's basically people who are have a good relationship with money, people who have a bad relationship with money, and people who are have an indifferent relationship to money. And basically, it's kind of like identifying which one you are. I personally, I already knew that before, but it really confirmed it that I had a bad relationship with money. And not that I was like, and there's a lot of different versions within each. There's kind of the person who spends too much, the person who holds on to money too much, the person who has fear around money. And for me, I had so much fear around money because, I was very poor when I was growing up. And then my mom was also horrible with money, which was a big stressor for me because she was just the worst with money. Like I would be like 5 years old, like, please do not buy that, mom, please.
Yo,
There's no
you're
food.
you're
Do not buy
you're
that.
explaining my you're explaining my life right now. Totally on the same page.
I
Same
love
thing.
it. We're like very in the same place.
Yeah. These I've got some people in the chat. They're talking about this money stuff, this money programming. Samantha says parents were frugal. I have such a hard time spending money. And see, it's like an
Mm-hmm.
example of just kind of how it goes sometimes. And now my life as well. We got somebody in here who connects to what you were just explaining about your relationship with money and your parents' relationship with money. Cool.
And same over
So I
here
have to.
too. Like saying people saying that her mom would hold on to money, but then still manage to have none. And I'm like, this is like
Yeah.
the type of stuff that we all like grew up, and then you don't realize that you have basically these associations and these traumas and these unconscious thoughts that you're manifesting your money
Mhm.
because of those things like you're talking about with Joe Dispenza, like the root. If you just chop it, it's gonna just grow another shoot.
Yeah. So I have to ask, you make a lot of content about disclosure and aliens and the different types of aliens and stuff like that. Have you ever been through an abduction experience or experienced any kind of like close encounter of any sort?
So I have when I was younger, when I was probably like about like 5 years old, my almost my whole family had this encounter. There was like seven of us there because it was like siblings and we have like a mixed family, so it was like siblings, step siblings. There was a lot of us, and so there was seven of us there that had a UFO encounter where it came down and landed in front of us. And then the next thing I remember was that we were all standing in a line and all like unfroze at the same time and started running. But it was like we were sitting when it happened. And I actually have this on my YouTube. I have the long version with all the details and everything. And I won't get into it because it's like a lot of small details.
Mhm.
But I had that experience when I was five. So basically, from the time I was 5 years old, I'm like, oh, they're lying. Like, I'll be in science class, like, no, that's a lie. Like, I
Yeah.
saw with my eyes, this is a lie. And then when I went under hypnosis, I wanted to find out more about what exactly happened. I've had also like some weird dreams when I was younger that were kind of like abductions, but they were like dreams, but
Mhm.
also like scary as hell, felt real. And under hypnosis, they basically, the information that I got was that it wasn't time for me to know what happened, but that me and one of my sisters went onto the ship, and that the hypnotherapist kept trying to like get some information. He was like, well, what was it about? What was happening on the ship? What were they doing? And the only word that they would tell me was exchange. That there was an exchange that happened. And then recently, which is so bizarre, like right when I first started doing TikTok, which was in the beginning of this year in January, I was doing an Akashic Records reading for myself. And I only really do them for like myself and like friends, like not as like a business or anything. And
Yeah.
I I apparently I found this in my phone. I was looking for something else, and I do like keep track of all of the stuff that comes through in my Akashic readings. And I can't had no recollection of doing this. And then I had this whole session that I did of an Akashic reading for myself. And apparently I asked about the UFO encounter, and no recollection of this happened. I just saw this like 2 weeks ago in my phone. I'm like, how did this get here? And they told me that it was with grays, that it was gray aliens that are the ones that were on the ship, and
Hmm.
that basically that I'm involved in this hybrid program.
Hmm. And so that's the Zeta Reticuli. Is that the short grays or the tall grays?
I don't know. I mean, I have to go back and kind of explore it because I had no recollection of it. It's funny, during this like session, they asked me if I wanted to stop and go to sleep, and I said no. So I guess I was like kind of like falling asleep as it was happening. And so maybe that's why I didn't remember this. And so yeah, I'm like, wow. And I know obviously people believe the grays are bad. I don't know if you see my content. I don't really agree with that. I think there's good and bad in everything and everyone, every group. There's even dogs that are bad. Like, come on. Like, so I think every group of anything will have some good and some bad because that's natural.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the that's an interesting that's a whole nother thing to get into, but the concept of good and bad is a very human thing. It's a concept that we give to try and understand our
Mhm.
experiences. And at the end of the day, I think good and bad, that dualistic thinking is it's I don't know. It's I think that even bad, what we perceive as bad experiences are still experiences for our soul's growth.
I
And
agree.
yeah, it's so
I'm a big
bad
believer in
aliens,
that.
good aliens, they're all
Mhm.
there is a purpose for all of it, you know?
And that's why a lot in this last alien series that I just did, I did talk a lot about like how people keep calling them demons. And of course, some demons are some aliens. That is
Yeah.
partly true. But then that would also mean that some of them are angels then, right? Like what people consider to be angels would probably also technically be aliens. Um
Yeah. It's
and I
lots
also
of
am a believer in like evil obviously is still a part of the same source. So it's still a
yeah.
part of God. It's still a part of creation of God. Evil is too. So that's one of the things that sometimes I get triggered by certain comments from religious people, and I really try not to because it's like, and I know I'm sure you get it too. There's so many like trolling for Jesus in the comments, and it's so confusing because Jesus would never be in the comments on TikTok being a dick. So
No.
I don't understand the trolling for Jesus. And at the same time, sometimes I find myself getting reactionary. And then I'm like, I don't want to be feeling this way because I don't want to feel like somehow divisive towards Christian people because there's some Christian people who are being dicks in the comments. Because I
Yeah.
have so many people that I love that are Christian too, that are
Yeah.
totally accepting of what I believe in, and I accept what they believe in, and a lot of it lines up when you really look at it with an open mind. All the religions, all the beliefs are kind of saying the same thing.
All of them.
And so it's definitely that's one of the like lessons that I am definitely learning from TikTok because I haven't had much religious trauma. I was not like raised in a very religious area. So like I had to go to Sunday school. I had to go and do my sacraments. I had to be raised Catholic, all of that, because my mom wanted me to. But it
Mhm.
wasn't really like traumatic or anything bad. It was like, sure, whatever. And then I would just ask some random questions like, so do people in other religions go to hell? Like I was that person in church.
Mhm.
But aside from that, now I like kind of get faced with this thing where I'm like, oh my God, these hateful comments. And I'm trying to like not respond and react because I don't want to insult everyone who has those beliefs because I know so many people who have those beliefs that I love. But I'm sure you
Yeah,
get the same in your comments.
the religious you repent or you're going to hell comments. It's I just
They're like, "Oh, you'll
ignore it.
find out. You'll
I
find
let it
out, and
go.
it'll be too late for you. So
Yeah.
you better get right with Jesus." And it's like,
It's
who said anyone
the
didn't like Jesus here?
yeah. Well, I'm a practicing witch. Like I practice witchcraft,
Oh, so they
and
really come for you.
I've posted some witchcraft videos on TikTok, and those ones especially have a lot of I'm a demon, I'm a devil,
Oh my
I'm
god.
leading people into the eternal flame,
Oh yeah, that's
and I'm
the
like,
one. That you're leading
okay,
people astray away from God. Like you're personally responsible for people going to hell. It's your personal responsibility that you just took on.
yeah. So I just I ignore those because like, and I believe in God. I believe in Christ consciousness. I believe that, and like this is just my personal belief, but Jesus was a there's a period of time where that's not really written about Jesus, where he kind of just disappeared. But if you look at Tibetan history, there's actually some pretty good evidence, some pretty solid evidence that Jesus traveled to Tibet
Mm,
and learned about meditation and transcendence with the Tibetan monks. And then he found God within, and then traveled back to the Holy Land and
mm,
was giving the word of God. He could perform these miracles. He could float out. He could walk on water. He could do all of these things that we kind of know that people can do when you transcend and you go into a certain state of mind. And more people are starting to tap into those abilities that would back then be considered miracles and acts of God. In if you look at Jesus, what Jesus was doing, um, but yeah, and like they crucified him because he was teaching people the secrets that they didn't want people to know, because if people knew those secrets, then they wouldn't be easily controlled, they wouldn't be manipulated, they could transcend, people would wake up. We were also kind of in the dark age at that point. The age of Pisces was the age of the dream, the age of the illusion.
mm-hmm.
um, so humanity wasn't really at that point cosmically to align with that awakening. So
And how
a
long
lot
it
of the
takes for something to happen, too. All of these, for us, it's, allegedly 2,000 years. But, on the grand scheme of things, the plan takes a long time. So, even, they talk about even like the dark agendas and stuff, that even those originated in ancient times too. And it really takes thousands of years for everything to play out in a way that would actually reach the masses. Someone's
yeah,
asking,
there's
what do you
actually
think
some.
about Ouija boards? I know that's off topic, but it just popped out to me.
I don't touch them. They're
Same. I wanted to know what you thought first because, you practice. So I was like,
there's just certain things that I'm aware, like I have, um, but it's very easy to misuse them, and
mm,
they're a portal. That's what you're
yeah.
doing, is you're opening up a portal, and if you don't know how to close that portal, or you don't know how to protect yourself or your home from that portal, anything could come through. And
Hmm.
sometimes you get lucky and nothing bad comes through, bad, but there are other times where you're not so lucky and you get a very mischievous elemental spirit, or you get
Hmm.
a very disgruntled soul come through, and they don't
It's
want to
true.
go back in.
Um, Someone, Spooky Ho, I love your name. This will be on YouTube. um, so I feel the same way about Ouija boards. It's like I'm very like I don't even want to be around them. Like if I see one, I'm kind of like I'm gonna head out. I'm not gonna mess around. And also, my and I've talked about this before to like some of the people that follow me, that like my family was kind of like part of it was very like Irish Catholic, and the other part was like gypsy witch. And so there was a lot of black magic around when I was a kid because that was like on my dad's side of the family. Um, and so we were always exposed to the Ouija boards. We had them and stuff when we were younger. And my sister and my stepsister, they did the Ouija board and got scared. Something weird happened. They got scared. They ran out of the room. They went downstairs, and then there was a guitar that was in the closet. They heard the guitar playing from up downstairs. So they went back upstairs, and the guitar was on the bed out of the case. And then after that, they started seeing in that same room that they did the Ouija board, and they saw this guy who was naked, who I guess died naked. And he was like this like scary naked old man. And
That's so
that room
traumatizing.
that room was horrifying. Like nobody ever wanted to go in that room again. And my brother then
Yeah.
ended up moving into that room at one point, and he had so many like psychic attacks happen for years in that room. It was terrifying. Anytime I slept in there, it was the scariest. So I kind of have always had that like, oh god, the naked ghost came out. So I was always like, no, I don't want to be around it.
No more naked ghosts. Yeah, it's
Yeah. Like at least if
that'd
you're going
be
to be a ghost, put clothes on, you know?
he he went out of the world the same way he came in, buck ass naked.
He's and came back again and again.
Oh, yeah, it's interesting that when stuff like that happens, people like it's it's fairly easy to get rid of them, but you kind of have to know what you're doing and like be very stern and like
Mm,
force your energy towards their energy and be like, "Okay, it's time for you to go, get out. You're not wanted here." And you have to have like a lot of people have priests come in and like or psychic mediums, and the reason that is because these people are very um, energetically lifted, and they have
mhm,
that capability energetically to push that energy out. Kids are actually really good at
mhm.
deciding if energies stay or go. But again, you have to have the intention of like sitting down, connecting with that energy, and then pushing that energy out. Kids are very connected to the other side.
It's true. And
There's
they
a
say, especially too, around puberty, it becomes very heightened.
yeah,
So it's like the
yeah.
veil is very thin up until like the age of 7. They're kind of a little bit in both worlds. And then they say that around puberty, like everything that's happening in your body becomes like supercharged. And I've read different things about like poltergeists, that basically a lot of times people who are experiencing poltergeists, it's actually just usually there's a person who's going through puberty, and they're having like they're so magically charged that it's actually the teenager that's causing those things as opposed to an actual entity in the house. So I was
Yeah.
like, I always thought that was interesting.
You know, it's interesting that you say that because when my daughter was a baby, uh, when me and her mother were still together, there would be she would be, and it was always when she was sleeping. She'd be sleeping in her room, and the door handle to her room would start wiggling, like violently wiggling and shaking around, and we would see light, like the whole. It would be like the whole room would light up, and you could see the light from under the door, and it would be like this flash of lightning. And
Oh wow.
we'd go and open up the door. She's slaying. She's fast asleep. She's totally cool. Same thing with the wiggling of the door handle. Go and check. Nothing there. She's
Oh
sleeping.
my gosh.
Um, and we'd hear like she'd be sleeping and like we'd be having a shower or something, doing whatever, and we could hear her babbling or crying or something. And then we'd go and check on her. Still, again, fast asleep. Lots of interesting things when she was asleep
Wow.
as a baby.
And you know what?
She's
I've
a very
heard
good.
actually multiple people that even like psychic people that I follow, different channelers, different spiritual teachers and stuff online. Um,
Yeah.
I think even people like Elizabeth April, I think was one that mentioned this. A bunch of people that I've looked at their stuff have a similar story about their parents telling them that these weird things happened when they were asleep, that certain entities, that they saw entities, that they had like visions, that the mom or dad would have visions. And it's interesting, there's a lot of these people who are now psychics and spiritual teachers and all of those things had very I've heard so many stories similar to that from them talking about their parents. So I wonder if
Yeah.
that's kind of something like that happening, like their energy, something's happening while they're sleeping as a baby.
Yeah. Well, she's a that's a whole like she's a very, very powerful child, very powerful being. She
Your daughter?
yeah, her name is Andromeda Aurora Starseed.
Oh my god, cool.
She if you can I tell you the story?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so before I met her mother, I had a psilocybin experience where uh, I won't give the whole story, but there was one point where I was being ripped apart. Every piece of my being was being ripped apart, and it was painful. This is actually the only what I would consider bad trip that I had ever. But I was being ripped apart, and I remember thinking like, I need help. Somebody help me. This is like I don't know. I was terrified. It was a
Mm.
terrifying experience. And there was like this pop and a snap, and everything came back, and I felt myself whole again. And my eyes are closed, and I'm going through the visuals, and there's this orb of light in front of me that was so warm and so pure love. It was like source love, not like I love you, my brother, I love you, my mom, I love you, my friend. It was like pure source love. I'd never felt anything like this before. Fast forward about a month, and this is right before I met my daughter's mother. I was meditating. Pardon me. I was meditating and had a very lucid visual meditation. I was having some pretty intense closed eye visuals. I was doing breath work and stuff, so it may have been a DMT release. Um, but I was an angel. I had these like crazy wings. I had this like blue lightning sword. I was fighting this shadow, and the shadow fell away. I dropped my sword. I dropped my hands, and I flew up, and everything went white. And when everything went white, I saw this orb again. It's the same thing. I've like just completely enveloped in pure
Mhm.
source love. And so I ended up meeting my daughter's mother. She became pregnant very fast, like within a week of us dating.
Wow.
And it just, that's the way it happens sometimes. um, and while she was pregnant, our daughter came to her in her sleep and told her that her name was Andromeda. Before this, like I mentioned before, I'm a practicing witch. I One of the things that I do is I dabble in herbalism. I create different tinctures and stuff like that, and I had actually created a love potion with osha root and damiana and lavender and a couple of other things. And I called on Aphrodite to imbue her magical energy into this love potion, being like, oh, she's the goddess of love. Completely clued out of the fact that she's also the goddess of fertility. Um, so when me and my daughter's mother started seeing each other, I was like, "Hey, I've got this love potion. I made this. The osha root. It releases oxytocin in the brain. It makes you feel warm and fuzzy. And bears actually seek this stuff out. It's also called bear root, and they seek this stuff out during mating season because it makes them feel warm and fuzzy and releases
Wow.
oxytocin in the brain. So we ended up both of us consensually taking this love potion, and sure enough, very shortly after that, she uh, ended up getting pregnant. Also, kind of interesting, I ended up moving into a house that I didn't know this at the time, but my biological father, who I don't know really, I've met him once. He lived in the same house, and it's the house that I was conceived in.
Oh my
And I,
God.
I unknowingly moved into the same house. My mom saw the house one day. what I can't remember what we were doing. She's like, "This is where you live?" I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "This is where Steve lived. This is where your dad lived." And I was like, "What?"
Oh my
And she was like,
God.
perfectly explained the layout of the house, and then told me that I was conceived in that house. I was like,
Oh
"Are you?"
my
And so
God.
me and my daughter were conceived in the same house, potentially in the same room.
Whoa.
And so
That is the
my
most full
daughter's mother,
circle moment ever.
yeah, my daughter's mother's pregnant. She has a dream. She tells her that her name is Andromeda. We later figured out that so the story of Andromeda in Greek mythology is that she was the daughter of the king of Ethiopia, and she was the most beautiful woman on the whole planet. And Poseidon got jealous because it was well known that Andromeda was the most beautiful. And Poseidon was like, "No, my daughters, the sea nymphs, they're supposed to be the most beautiful." So he went to the king of Ethiopia. He said, "Listen, I don't like this. Sacrifice your daughter to my sea monster, or I'm wiping out your whole kingdom." So he said, "Okay, take her." Tied her to a rock. Sea monster was about to eat her, and Perseus was coming. He had just slain Medusa, and he was flying overhead, and he saw Andromeda tied to the rock, instantly fell in love, flew down, turned the sea monster to stone, saved Andromeda. They lived happily ever after. Uh, Perseus was it? Yes, Perseus was the one that rode the Pegasus, correct?
I'm not sure.
I think for some reason I'm having doubts on this. Okay, yes, it was Perseus. Sorry. Perseus is brothers. Perseus and Aphrodite are brother and sister.
Mm,
So the fact that it would essentially Andromeda would essentially be Aphrodite's sister-in-law. After I called
wow.
on Aphrodite with this love potion, it was just like lots of
And then,
coincidences.
yeah. Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah, and
And then what was the
she's a
rest of her name?
very Andromeda Aurora Starseed.
Nice.
I was like, because I had always thought like if I ever had kids, if I had a girl, I really liked the name Aurora, and for a boy, Orion. I've always been very attracted to the Orion constellation. Um, so when she had the dream about Andromeda, I was like, okay, this is like another celestial body. I totally dig the name. She came to her in her dream. Her name's Andromeda, 100%. So we compromised and we made her middle name Aurora, and then Starseed because, well, she's a star. But yeah, she's a very powerful being. She's very smart, very sassy, so wise for her age.
Aw.
Um, I fully like I have psychic abilities. I that especially as a kid, I could see auras as a kid. I astral traveled like almost nightly. I can still see auras if I try hard enough. I have kind of a technique that I use, and I've had dreams where deceased people have come to me and given me messages and stuff like that. And her mom is also a very cosmic being. So
People
I'm
want to know how old your daughter is.
she's 4.
4.
She just turned
Oh,
4.
number 4, full circle again.
Yeah. Yeah. I have no doubts that she's probably going to have some interesting psychic abilities as she
I
gets
bet.
older.
And I feel like that age, the people who were just coming in, recently, those are
Yeah.
the crystal children, like Dolores Cannon talks about this like third wave. The third wave is like really long. It's continuously still happening. But as it goes on, the kids are more and more and more and more psychic because the foundation has already been laid for them to be their true selves, you know, by parents like you. So it's like that's already like the foundation is laid for people who are just being born to just be fully in their true selves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
I
someone
love
saying
Dolores
too
Cannon.
about their son's name popping into their head. Someone right before that said that their mom had a dream of the name that they ended up being named after. My children announced themselves too. So they say that you choose your own. obviously everything, your parents, your life, all of that, your problems that you'll have. But also, they say you choose your birth chart and you choose your name because the name has a frequency.
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of times people will either have a dream about their child's name, or sometimes they're like, oh, we're going to name him Alex. And then they go give birth and they're like, you know what? We went with Johnny, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. My name is my I can't remember if I told you my name, but my name is Tame, which the way that it's spelled Taime is like je t'aime, so it's love in French.
Oh, wow. Very cool. So someone's
The
asking over here, I do want to answer this. They asked a couple times if I know anything about Dolores Cannon's passing. I do. And I cried when I found out. But yeah, so it's not like anything weird, you know. Dolores was like 85 years old or something when it happened. Uh and it was just kind of like she right before her death, she started telling her kids that she was going to, she wanted them to just start teaching the hypnosis and that she
yeah,
didn't want to travel to do it anymore. So, right before she died, that was the first time that her daughters went and taught without her. And so it was kind of like they got that confirmation from her before it happened.
yeah,
They did tell her, she said that she was told she was going to live till 90, but her daughter said that she feels like she was told that because they couldn't tell her that it was coming soon because everyone in the family was going to panic and freak out because obviously she
yeah,
was the staple of the whole family. And as far as the events of how it happened, Dolores used to go every single week to get her hair done. You know, those old ladies, they would go and get their rollers and they would get their hair set for the week. And so Dolores used to get her hair set at the salon every week, and she was fine. She went by herself, and then while she was at the hair salon, she fell and she hit her head, and that was it. She went to the hospital. They basically had a bunch of healers from all over the world working on her while she was in the hospital, but it was her time.
yeah.
So yeah, all the heal. It's basically her daughter said like all the healers in the world were not really going to do anything because it was Dolores's time. Oh, I know it's sad. I know.
That's interesting. I love Dolores Cannon. I've read a lot of her books, and I actually didn't know how she passed. It's
You know what? No
interesting.
one
She
really.
did.
They never really spoke about it publicly. They just kind of like moved on. But I think it was because it was obviously very painful for the family to talk about. Uh,
Yeah.
I remember I actually found out because I don't know if you follow Regina Meredith at all. She has a show called Open Minds on Gaia, and one of the very old episodes, super old episodes, she asks, it was right after it happened, and then her daughter was on the show, and they kind of go over exactly what happened. But that's the only time that I've seen them talk about it at all, and that's also because Regina Meredith knew Dolores.
Yeah. I mean, she lived to a ripe age, though. It's
I know she lived to be 85, so it wasn't anything. It was in 2014. It wasn't
yeah,
anything like crazy. You know, I think sometimes people ask because they're like, "Oh, what happened to her?" It's like, no, she was fine all the way up until that day. You know, she had nothing happening, no medical issues, nothing, and then that day, that was it.
it's interesting that she went the way that she did, where she hit her head. I wonder if there was
Oh,
reason for that. I don't know.
I know. When I heard that, I was like, "Oh God!" I was literally like crying my eyes out when I heard it. Um, but it was time. And you look at how everything is, so much has changed since then. Since Dolores left, like she has no idea how much her work, I mean, she does have, I'm sure, but like how much her work really blew up after her death. Um, and I've heard a lot of people, there's been a lot of Dolores hate on TikTok recently. I don't know if you've come across it. I don't know how people can. She is like a sweet grandmother. Uh, but a lot of Dolores hate recently. I saw someone posting about like basically like, oh, Dolores worked for the government. No, she did not. She did not work for the government. Dolores had to publish all of her own books because no one would touch them. She wrote a book in 1980 that she didn't publish until 2009. Like the reason
Yeah.
she had to start her own publishing company was because of the conversations with Nostradamus. She had to start publishing it because Nostradamus was telling her through hypnosis that you need to tell the people, and no one would publish it. So she had to start her own company. So I mean, it's
Yeah.
so many people. There's a lot of people who will literally watch a video that says like Dolores Cannon debunking before they even take the chance to look at a Dolores Cannon book themselves.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, I get tagged in those videos all the time because I think people kind of want me to fight with the person who's bashing Dolores, but it's like she says in her work is for the volunteers.
Mhm.
Like her work is for the volunteers. When they hear this information, there's going to be something in their soul that is unlocked. They're going to receive downloads and they're going to start on their path. She didn't care if everybody liked her work. It was literally
Yeah.
for the specific people who it was going to unlock something in them. So I'm like, I always respond to people who kind of do the Dolores bashing. I'm like, it wasn't meant to resonate with everyone, but you wouldn't know that because you didn't read it and you didn't look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. There's like you said, I don't know how anybody could hate on Dolores. She was so sweet.
I
But
know.
I think that there's levels to conspiracy theories, and I hate using that term where it's like conspiracy theory because I think there's truth in everything, whatever, but
Yeah. And also,
um
conspiracy doesn't mean that it's not true. It just means that there's a group of people plotting something.
exactly. Um I find that there are levels to conspiracy theory, and some of it gets pretty intense. And like to the point where like you can't do or say anything without people, there's like certain groups of people being like, that's wrong, that's you're working for the government. I've had people accuse me of
Same.
working for the government. I just made a video about electric cars being terrible for the environment and just like not good, and
They're like, who sent
promoting,
you?
yeah, promoting hydrogen run cars. And I had this person who just went off and he's like, you sound like you work for the government, you're supporting big oil. And I'm like, I didn't say anything about oil at all. I'm just
They're
saying that
so
electric cars aren't
ridiculous.
the best.
Like, and that's the big thing that, which my next series that I'm going to focus on, because this is kind of the pattern that I'm seeing, is that if you get into conspiracies without the spirituality, without the soul, without the heart, it's dangerous. And like, I think
Yeah.
that's the big thing too, is that a lot of us who've been into, the rabbit hole for a while, it was very intertwined with spirituality and learning about healing and the heart and transformation. Whereas now, through QAnon and all that stuff, that's conspiracies that wasn't connected to spirituality. And if you're not connected at the heart, you're going to, first of all, how are you going to have the discernment to know what's right? Because a big part of discerning conspiracies is going with your intuition. You
Yeah.
go through stuff and you'll be able to see a conspiracy and be like, oh, this is like a psyop thing to discredit people, or this is really what's happening. And if you
Yeah.
don't have the heart connected, how can you navigate the conspiracy world? You're just going to end up going crazy.
Which some people do.
Yeah. And you always go through that stage too. Everyone has that stage of their awakening where you're on the border right there, where you're like, am I going crazy? What's happening? You always get that point where you get a little scared. Something will happen that's a little too much.
Yeah. I think that was my early on. Like the first time that I had kind of a wake up moment, I was 19, and I remember my uncle talking about this video that he had that somebody gave him. It was on a CD that was burnt, and it was talking about 9/11 being an inside job. Hopefully, I don't get squashed here by talking about this,
I
but
think that one's trendy enough. I think we're allowed to say that now.
yeah, I was I don't know what TikTok is gonna like give me the ban hammer for, so I try to tread carefully on lives and videos and stuff. But um, yeah, the first time was watching this video and just seeing all of the pieces put together. And that was the first time that I'd ever questioned authority, questioned society, questioned what the fuck is going on? What is this about? Like why would they do this kind of thing? And that one video that I watched that me and my uncle even to this day were like two peas in a pod when it comes to talking
Mhm.
about all sorts of everything. Um, but yeah, that just sent me down a rabbit hole. And it just never stopped. I'm still falling. So
You never do. There's always more to
yeah,
find out.
yeah,
My first conspiracy, but it wasn't like the full blown rabbit hole conspiracy because I was very young. It was in the AOL days on the chain letters. And
yeah.
my mom would forward me chain letters because I guess she didn't want bad luck. So my mom was always forwarding me chain letters, and there was one about uh Paul McCartney basically not being the real Paul McCartney, that he was replaced, and this is like these Beatles conspiracies.
Yeah.
So I remember being on like the old like Yahoo GeoCities websites and like watching all this stuff about Paul McCartney and I Am the Walrus and the songs playing backwards. And so, like that was like the old school one.
Yeah.
Um, but my one that really like changed my entire life to like the point that scary stuff started happening and I kind of needed to come up for air was the all presidents related.
Yeah.
So all the that's the one that was like, oh my god, it's
The
this
royal
is all really
bloodline.
happening.
Yeah. That's crazy. That bloodline goes all the way back to Egypt. That's insane.
Yeah, probably goes all the way back beyond Egypt to the stars.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. But
Yeah, someone that's not even a conspiracy theory. Exactly.
yeah.
Well, that's because we associate conspiracy theories, but if you look at the definition, it's really just you think there's a group of people that are up to something.
Mhm.
But obviously, they better like change that because it's like they still use it legally in court cases all the time, charging people with conspiracy, but then try to completely discredit conspiracy. I'm like, how could you play both sides? But they do. They always play both
Um,
sides.
yeah. That's just it's that duality, it's that separation. It's like we can do this, but you can't. We can say this, but you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Misinformation, disinformation, but it's called counterintelligence when we do it.
Yeah. It's wild. Yeah, cause I've gone. There's so many. It's interesting that you mentioned the songs playing backwards.
Oh my
I
god,
remember
that was
sitting.
the one that scared the hell out of me, that I was afraid to meditate for like 5 years after I started listening to things played backwards. Seriously, it's scary.
It's interesting because I remember. So I guess maybe that might have been my first like introduction. I didn't know what it was. I remember being a kid. I remember sitting with my cousin. We were a kid and we were on the computer and we found this website that had like a whole list of songs. And you could listen to it forward, the part, and you could listen to it backwards, the part. And there was just like the Britney Spears and the Ozzy Osbourne and the Beatles and Led
And why
Zeppelin.
are they always saying scary, evil stuff?
Yeah. And I remember actually me and my cousin started we found this program that would reverse songs. So we
Oh my.
started downloading like different In Sync and Backstreet Boys and Ozzy Osbourne songs and we were finding our own in
Oh
these and we were like why are these messages so clear? Like we can hear it very clearly. Why are they saying these things backwards and like so a lot of the time too when you listen to it forward, it's kind of mumbled a little bit. And there's it's that subliminal messaging thing. Your subconscious mind picks up on way more than your conscious mind does,
hmm
and so those subliminal messages that are in there when you're hearing that forward muffled message, your subconscious mind is decoding that and it's like
hmm
swirling around in there and it's
And one
yeah
of the explanations that I've heard too is that um, our our unconscious mind is obviously aware of everything. So our word choice is because our unconscious mind knows the full truth. The words that we choose unconsciously is being chosen because the truth is hidden in those words. So
Yeah.
when I first learned about that was around the same time that I had gone down the rabbit hole of the presidents. Um, so I had read, online this whole, similar to the series I just did, but about like kind of like how we started in Lyra and how there was like cat people and cat people basically created humanoids and how there was like bird avian people and they are allegedly the ones who created reptilians and that there was kind of two parts of the universe and it was like kind of like, one of those stories that was online. So I read it and it resonated a lot and I was like, what if I recorded myself saying this story and then played it backwards to see if it's true? I scared the hell out of myself so bad. I've never been so scared in my life, but watching myself play it backwards because and there's one part that I think I still have saved. I think I deleted the whole video. I got scared because this was early in my journey and I was like not fully like heart centered yet. And if you're not really heart centered, then this stuff will really shake you. At least
Yeah.
if you're heart centered, you can be like, oh, but I know that light wins, the good always, everything is just love at the end. You could stay there. But if you're not heart centered, you're like, oh God, they're gonna get me. And one of the things that it said was see their shit, Yahtzee government, and l- clear as day said it. And obviously I say Yahtzee because I've gotten a violation for saying the unedited version of that word. Um, but I don't know why that word is like some people can say it and some people can't on TikTok. But I'm one of the people who can't say that word apparently.
What
But
is the well, don't say the word, but what is I'm trying to
Yahtzee,
figure out the yeah.
think
I
of
don't know.
Germany in the 40s.
Oh, okay. What? What? That's
Flat out
crazy.
says, see their shit, Yahtzee government. And I was like, oh God. Like
Huh.
the words that were coming through played backwards were so clear and so scary. I deleted the whole thing. And
I
I was
mean,
afraid after that.
true. True.
But it is true because
Well, it's
obviously though that's still ingrained in our government and we know that because of Project
all
Paperclip and
over.
all that other stuff.
Yeah, all over. And it's like look at NASA, von
Mm.
Braun, you look at like all over. That's like the science world, the medical world, all of it
Mhm.
has like imprints of that in it. And it's how do
Exactly.
you not look at that and see I don't know. It's just it's in plain sight. It's right there. You just need to look at it.
Mhm. And I mean, I don't know if you watch Rick and Morty, but
A little bit.
there was that episode, I think it was this last season, the fourth one, um, where Rick dies in one timeline and he has all these backup things where he'll be reprinted in other timelines. And
Yeah.
every other timeline, there's a fascist government. Every other timeline, and he's like, and then like he'll come back and there's like a wasp people, but they're like fascist wasps, and it's so funny because it's like literally that's probably what it is. We're probably on like the one timeline that it's like hidden, and the other ones they actually won. Here they're at least in hiding of their position.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that there's like it's interesting too. Like I've done a lot of digging into Freemasonry and um, just like shadow government and like the all of that kind of stuff. And I came across this theory that um, like I've got some friends who are Freemasons, and I actually almost joined. Not gonna lie, I was very close to joining the Freemasons, and I ended up
And the
running
same
into
thing like we were
this.
talking about. There's good and bad in every group. There is no that is all one or the other.
Yeah. Well, I think. the reason I ended up not is because like there's obvious once you get higher up into Scottish Rite and Knights Templar and all that stuff, it gets pretty dark. But there's a theory that the Freemasons are kind of like the anti-hero, where they know that there are certain things that humanity has to go through in order to awaken, and a lot of that is shadow work, right? And when you're dealing with worldwide shadow work, it's going to look ugly. It's going to get really messy, and there's going to be people that get hurt. There's going to be things that do not seem favorable. Um, but in the grand timeline of everything, there are, like, for me personally, my experiences in life, I know that there are things that I wouldn't understand or be aligned with had there not been something that completely shook me awake, or like
Exactly.
some kind of trauma that I had to heal from,
Mm.
and in that process of learning to heal, moving, transmuting that
Which is why
shadow
we
into
can't look
light.
at things as good and bad, because there's, from the worst things that we've ever experienced is usually the way that you end up helping people the most in the world.
Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting
I've
with
been
all of
becoming
the.
more open-minded about the Freemason thing recently. Um,
Yeah.
with everything, with, you know, the journey of light and dark and all of that. And I mean, I try to be pretty open-minded about things that personally I don't know exactly what's going on there. I haven't read the books about it. So I don't want to make any type of claim, as where before I did feel like, oh, they're bad, you know. But I've definitely become more open minded to it, like what you're saying, the shadow work stuff. And I never heard that, but that does resonate a lot, where it's like kind of like there's some type of collective mission of kind of, you know, going through the collective shadow work. Um, that could be connected to. Similar to like, you know, people talk a lot about Luciferianism, and they say that Freemasons are, obviously, you know, many aren't, you know. Uh, and that's the same thing too, you know. The Luciferian thing, from my understanding, is that basically Lucifer is still serving God by pushing God's experiment to its max of what it can learn, and it
Yeah.
still is a service to God. So I mean, I am open-minded about that type of stuff, and I actually have started following some people who debunk things about Freemasons. um and I'm actually very interested in their work, because you know what, they have the best libraries. I thought I
Oh
had
my
cool
God.
books. When you've got to follow the Freemasons on TikTok, and you think you know about the Bible, they know about the Bible. They got the Bible from the 1800s. They have
Do
the
you
original
follow
prints, and they got receipts. And I've learned more on the Freemason TikTok. Like, they'll be dropping knowledge because they have the books, they have the greatest library. So it's like, if you're not willing to learn from something that you're afraid of, or that you don't understand, or that you have an idea about,
yeah.
then what's the point, you know? Yeah,
Do you
someone's saying they know
follow
the Bible up and down. Seriously. Like,
do you
they'll
do
have
you,
people
do
in
you
the
follow
comments calling
Pax?
them, yeah, they'll have people calling them evil in the comments, and they know the Bible better than that person who's
Yeah.
rebuking them, you
Yeah.
know?
Do
Look
you
at
do you follow
Luciferians right now.
Pax? I think it's
Huh?
Pax. Yeah, I think his name is Pax Dickerson.
I don't think so.
Okay, he's super funny, super cool guy. He's a Freemason on TikTok. Follow him,
I'm
and then
gonna
there's
check them
another
out.
guy. Then there's another
So,
guy. He's got
Museum of
tattoos
Tarot.
like,
Oh
what's
yeah,
that?
so that's one. His name, I think, is, I don't know if I'm gonna say it wrong, but it looks like Widow's Miho. Like, but I don't know if that's what he's trying to make it. Like, it's Widows Mijo. He has a lot of really cool videos debunking people claiming that Freemasons are evil. And they're like, read a Bible, bro. And then he'll pull out his Bibles, and he has like a Bible from the 1800s. I'm like, I want to see that.
Yeah,
Please open it and show us. And also,
yeah,
Museum of Tarot, guys. check out Museum of Tarot. He has the craziest inherited book collection I've ever seen in my whole freaking life. And he drops the knowledge, and it's like that's, I think, kind of like, where we want to get to. We can't have all of these, because a lot of all the religions, a lot of the groups, a lot of the stuff, everyone is kind of talking about the same stuff. And most of the people that are involved in Freemasonry are not trying to ruin the world. A lot of them are just people who were on a path of ascension, and that was the path that they took, whereas like people like us take a different path of ascension.
The people that I know who are Freemasons are like not spiritual at all. They
Mm,
and like Freemasonry, there's definitely people who are in Freemasonry who are like ultra. They're like in the libraries and like learning all the knowledge, and that's why they join the Freemasons, because of the knowledge that they have and the books that they have, and you get access to those libraries.
that would be me. I want to
But
get in that library bad.
yeah,
I'm like, get
90
me in that
percent
library.
90% of Freemasons never leave Blue Lodge, which is your entry point. So you go through your initiation, you go through um, the three levels, and then you're in Blue Lodge, and that's where most people stay. And Blue Lodge is kind of like um, it's kind of like a you're playing government in a sense, where there's a you've got everybody that's at the meeting, and everybody that's at the meeting has a certain role within the meeting, and those roles shift. Every month there'll be, or every couple months there'll be a new role that you take on. You learn that role, and during the next meeting you kind of enact your duties within that role. And a lot of it is just charity work, and
Mm,
there's a lot of philanthropy that happens within Blue Lodge, within Freemasonry. But once you leave Blue Lodge, once you start on the path of becoming a Knights Templar, or like Scottish Rite, that's where you would
mhm.
eventually lead up to 32nd degree Freemasonry. That's where you start to, things get interesting when you get higher up.
Mm.
Um,
I think that guy, the one that we were talking about with the face tattoos, I think he's on the 32nd degree on his profile.
Yeah. I think, yeah, he's got a ton of knowledge. I would not doubt that at all.
Yeah,
As
he does
to
have a
get
lot
up
of
to that
information. And he's
that
a big
level
lover
of
of Jesus. He talks about Jesus all the time. He's obsessed with Jesus. So a lot of people like tell him to find Jesus, and he's like, dude, I literally have.
yeah, to get up to that role of 32nd degree, you go through, basically you learn a play for the first degree, second
Oh,
degree, third degree,
yeah.
all the way up to 32 degrees. You learn a play, and what these plays are biblical depictions of, like, their stories from the Bible, like old Bible, like Old Testament, like
Mhm.
original Bible stuff that you're not going to find in these new versions of the King James. Um, but you have to learn all these lines, and you basically, it's a bunch of grown men playing theater, and every
And we know how
degree that you go
powerful that
in,
is.
yeah, every degree that you go up, you're enacting a new scenario, and you have to really, like, everything has to sink in. You have to memorize so much knowledge and then recite it, and it's crazy. But once you hit 32nd, the 33rd degree, which is the untold degree, uh, they usually only go to the people who they know, who they can, like, kind of get a sense of, like, okay, this guy's really not going to talk. He's really not going to say anything. He's really fucking devoted. And they'll usually go to those people. And that's where things start to get a little weird.
Hmm.
That's,
And I think exactly. I think it comes down to the people, because it's the same thing. People have that same perception of people who are new age or witches or things like that. And it's like people always have this perception of like, oh, that's evil, that's dark. But it's like there's always going to be people with different intentions in everything.
Yeah.
And nothing is, so black and white.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
also too about that, kind of similar to what you were saying about how they might be doing like a collective shadow work. I like that.
Mm,
I've never heard that, and I'm like really thinking about it. And
mm,
one of the things that I think is interesting is, I don't know if you are familiar with Marina Jacobi. She's on YouTube, and she channels Pleiadians and basically teaches like the quantum structure. Her information is so hard to take at first, but then once it clicks, you're like, oh, you go back and watch the videos and it makes sense, but it takes a little while to click. Um, but she basically has talked about this. What I think is really interesting is that she says that, okay, yes, there is light and dark agendas, but the dark agenda, the ones that are not here right now and the low levels of it, she's like, the higher parts of the dark agenda have already figured out that their timeline fails, and that there's
mm,
so many higher beings that were higher dark beings who now are back here working on a human ascension process because they realize that they basically cancel out in their future timeline. So, in order for their self preservation, which is what comes up a lot with the grays too, people talk about the grays being bad and evil, but then there's also a lot of grays, which are time traveling, that have already figured out that their way of life gets canceled out in the final timeline of the universe because it's not of the highest timeline. So it's not
yeah.
going to be the plan of the universe. And basically, so I also assign to that idea that, like, there's also maybe beings who were once serving darkness and having that self serving way, who, when they get far enough, realize that they cannot exist in the timeline of the universe being that way and will eventually come back. So that makes me think about what you're saying too, is that maybe there is something like that where it's kind of like a collective ascension process. Because even the grays too will sometimes do things that are traumatic to shock the person into a quicker awakening,
Yeah.
and the same thing too with people who have psychic attacks. A lot of people who have psychic attacks, I've heard this theory that I also assign to, that, like, basically, if you're experiencing psychic attacks, it's either another version of yourself forcing you to move quicker in your spiritual journey, or it's it's another version of yourself doing it, or it's a soul that you have a contract with. And that if you're not basically moving quick enough on your spiritual journey, you'll get a psychic attack from a freaking reptilian. And that actually, that reptilian, you guys agreed to do that if you weren't to this point by this time. So, you
I
know,
like that.
I definitely, that's the way that I perceive a lot of light and dark stuff. Someone saying,
Yeah.
what is a psychic attack? Psychic attacks can be a lot of different things. Sometimes people experience them in their dreams, where it's like kind of like a bad dream, but it seems a little different. Like, it seems kind of like something nefarious was happening more than a dream, not just a regular bad dream. Sometimes it happens to people in their waking state, like from like a shadow person, kind of depending on your level of sensory. If you're someone who can see things, you might experience a little bit more of an aggressive psychic attack because you might actually see something, or something might fall in your house, or, you know, and then other people who are kind of maybe not as much seers, they might experience it in dreams or in meditation. Maybe in a meditation, they might like see a scary being that they feel like is intruding on their meditation. But it's really nothing to be afraid of. I don't like to like give too much attention to like stuff that's scary. Um, but I think it is also part of pushing an ascension process that we've agreed to. I don't think that they're just
Yeah.
out there doing evil stuff for no reason. Is sleep paralysis a
Yeah.
psychic attack? I think some people experience a version of psychic attacks when they have like the thing with the old hag or something, where they feel like they're being suffocated. But then I think some sleep paralysis is people astral traveling in their sleep and not coming back to their body quick enough when they're waking up. What do you think?
Um, with the sleep paralysis, I don't know. I've never actually. I have had sleep paralysis. I had sleep paralysis once when I was a kid. I had a really weird dream. I remember the dream very vividly. I was with my brother in the dream, and we were kids. My brother was very young, probably like 5 or 6, so I would have been like 12. Um, and in the dream, we were in a basement, and suddenly the basement filled with pillows, and my brother fell, like he like seized up and started having a seizure in the dream, and his eyes rolled back, and he was foaming out of his mouth, and it freaked me out so bad. And I woke up, and when I woke up, I couldn't move. I remember
Mm.
being able to like move my eyes, and like that was it. But my whole body was like petrified. I was like, I don't know. It was such a weird experience. I have no idea really what sleep
So that's
paralysis
like
is.
that
I've
seems
never
like
really
what I've
dove
heard.
into it.
Dolores has asked about it in some of her books before. And what they say is that basically, obviously, everyone is astral traveling in their sleep. And sometimes you wake up quicker than your consciousness can come back fully to the body. And that sounds like what happened with you is that you got jolted awake, but
Yeah,
you were kind of still coming back astrally into the body. And there's kind of this delay. And then the
yeah.
times some people see shadow people when they're having people some people who have repetitive sleep paralysis will sometimes see beings. I feel like that could somewhat be maybe a psychic attack, but I don't know too much about the reasoning behind those beings.
I know that like I've had some pretty intense dreams with the hag, but
You've
never
dreamt of
like, oh yeah, quite a few my whole life actually.
wow.
Um, from the time that I was a kid, and it's always this weird house. Like it's like your typical spooky haunted house, and the one of the most recent ones it's been a few years actually, but the most recent one that I had, I remember walking in this house and going up this set of stairs, and she was at the other end of this massive room, super dark, dreary, cobwebs. Like when I say typical
Mhm.
haunted house, it's like very typical. Um, and I remember looking, and I'm like, oh no, it's her. And having
Mhm.
that thought, oh no, it's her. And she immediately turned around, and I saw like her nasty face, and just like swooped right in, like and like screaming. And I woke up with that like screaming ringing in my ears. And
Wow.
yeah, she's visited me many times since I was a
So
child.
some people are
And
asking who is the old hag. um so she's kind of like a common figure that comes up in uh shadow people, sleep paralysis, sometimes in nightmares. And she's basically, yeah, someone's saying a banshee. Like she's kind of like this older, she's an old woman who's just like scary and decrepit, right? I've only seen depictions of her because I've never seen it in my life. I've only seen the drawings of people doing of her. And it's similar to if you guys know about the Hat Man. So a lot of people experience the Hat Man, um, which is also what's crazy about like the shadow people thing. So if shadow people is just a projection of your inner state, why do so many thousands of people see the exact same figures?
I've also seen shadow beings. None of this stuff really freaks me out too much though. Just I guess because I grew up, my mom being Wiccan, that's kind of where I
Oh,
adopted
your
my,
mom is Wiccan.
yeah. So I've always kind of been like, I remember even as a kid, I remember watching a plate fly off the counter and like smash into the wall.
Mhm.
And like as a kid, I was like, whoa, what the fuck was that? Like not
Wow.
understanding, but like I've seen some pretty intense stuff with spirits and like things moving and whatever. Um, So like the shadow people and the hag and stuff like that, like I know I'm protected. I know that I'm safe. I know
Exactly.
that none of this can actually like hurt me or touch me. So at the point that I'm at now in my life, I find it very amusing and I'm like, oh, that was cool. I actually wanted to touch on something you had mentioned a little bit before about your higher self kind of giving you a sign and like shit, like jolting some kind of an awakening. And
Yeah.
I had an experience right before I started posting to TikTok. I had kind of posted a little bit with a clothing brand, and then I was like, I kind of abandoned that, and I was like, I'm not going to do that. And my TikTok just kind of sat dormant. And I used to make YouTube videos. A couple years ago, I was making YouTube videos, and I actually ended up stopping just because I was making the YouTube videos on my phone, and I didn't have a lot of storage on my phone. It was a pain in the butt to do, and so I ended up stopping. And then I upgraded my phone, and I upgraded the storage in that phone. So I was like, I had this thought. I'm sitting at the desk that I'm actually sitting at right now, and I had this thought of like, oh, I should make YouTube videos again. I had a lot of fun doing it. And now I have a better phone with a better camera, and I have more storage, and there's nothing holding me back from making YouTube videos. And I had this old um, phone tripod that I used to use. I have a better one now, but I had this other one that was a little bit smaller, but it was set up on my desk, and I was normally using it as a headphone stand because I
Mm.
also make music, so I've got some audio production headphones, and I was using it as that, but they weren't on there, and it was sitting in front of me. And as I'm having this thought, I was like, oh, maybe I'll make TikTok videos again. Shorter form, it's super easy. I can just I have a thought, I can get it out there. It's kind of like Twitter, but for video content. And as I had this thought, my my phone tripod literally slides across my desk and stops in front of me. And
Wow.
most people would have the thought of like, holy shit, it's a ghost, run away and freak out. My very first thought was like, holy shit, that's me. I don't know. Have
Mm.
you? I'm assuming you've seen Interstellar.
You know what? I haven't, and the amount of comments I get a day to watch Interstellar, I really need to.
Okay, so there's this part in Interstellar. I won't ruin. Oh fuck. Okay, so I'm not gonna say
I
anything
know
about
it's kind of
Interstellar
about
because
everything that we're talking about.
a little bit, yeah.
People
There's
always say that on like everything. They're like, "This is just like Interstellar." So like, it's basically everything that I am interested in.
yeah. So, but there's a part in without giving anything away. There's a part in Interstellar where he gives himself a sign, and
Hmm.
I just like immediately I had like my first thought wasn't this is a ghost, this is a spirit, this isn't scary. I was like, this is me. I'm giving myself a sign. It was my phone tripod. Right as I'm
Yes.
thinking about making TikTok content, and I'm like, okay, so that's it. That's my sign. That's what I need. I need to start making TikTok content, getting my thoughts, my experiences, and everything people. And sure enough, my account has grown fairly quickly.
Yeah. I feel
Um,
like a lot of
I remember,
people with this type of content, I feel like we all grew pretty fast. Like
yeah, you've
very,
grown
and I
really
feel like,
fast.
yeah. And I feel like, there's a lot of other people too that, I've done lives with, that I've become friends with from TikTok. And it's like a lot of us all really grew very quickly. And I feel like it's because everything is aligned. One, we're in our right space that we're supposed to be in the way that we're helping people,
Yeah,
but also that people are in the right space to receive the energy right now. So it's like, I think that's why a lot of this like spiritual content has done so well.
yeah, yeah, and that's like kind of going back to what I was saying earlier. I noticed there's way more people open to this kind of that kind of content and the messages that we're sharing. And I truly believe that, kind of like you said, we're doing what we need to be doing. We're heart centered. We're sharing a message that the collective needs to hear right now. And even the people who doubt it, who aren't necessarily open to it, it's still getting shown to them because I see their comments
Exactly.
were like, this is bullshit. This is whatever. But those seeds are still being planted. They're still seeing that
Hmm.
content.
And we've probably been
And
there too, you know? I remember
yeah,
the first time I heard about certain conspiracies, I was not open to them initially. There was a couple of conspiracies that I was like, "Get out of here. Shut up." You know, like and probably not as much as other people because I had the whole alien experience and stuff, so there was a lot of things that I was open to. But, there was definitely some that I was not as open to, and it just takes time. It's going to happen at the right time for people. So a lot of times people ask about like what do I do about waking up my family or like my partner or this or that, and it's like everything's going to happen at everyone's own, and everyone's soul has a choice, and some people will choose by their free will to not experience the same reality as
mhm,
and that also needs to be respected. And I think that's another thing too that happens in the conspiracy world with people being not connected to spirituality and being heart centered is that they become aggressive towards people who have different beliefs. Also, with a lot of the flat
yeah,
earth stuff now, a lot of people who believe in flat earth are super aggressive in the comments lately. Like, not like specifically mine because I don't really draw the new earth hatred, but other people who are talking about like more mainstream regular type topics. Some people who have recently become a believer of flat earth, they'll be so aggressive, like, "Oh, I see you're fucking stupid." And I'm like, damn, why are they attacking this person? And
yeah,
everyone has their right to believe. Same thing, I want to believe what I believe too.
yeah,
So, you can't be aggressive about different people's beliefs because everything is subjective anyway. It's a freaking
yeah,
hologram. It's all subjective.
yeah. So what do you think about the theory of like NPCs or background people?
Okay, so I've been very into it lately. So the background people, first I heard about it in Dolores Cannon, Convoluted Universe, Book 4 and 5.
Yeah,
She doesn't do a great uh, way of explaining what that is. And she kind of like re-explains it in a way that sounds nicer than what the words actually said. She kind of re-explains it under, and I'm like, yo, did she read what was just above? Um, so this concept of like the background people, that not every person who is on earth is a person who was a soul that chose a purpose to come here and carry out that purpose. And in the Dolores book, the person describing it who's under hypnosis basically is like, oh my God, this is kind of like a slave energy. And this energy is taken from somewhere else and brought here. And they're kind of enslaved to serve the people who are carrying out purposes. Which is interesting because that's a little different than the NPC thing. Whereas like the NPC thing is more like obviously non-player characters where they're kind of just manifestations of the simulation, and that they're
yeah,
not really anything, that they're just kind of projections. Whereas the Dolores stuff says that it's an energy that's been taken from somewhere and brought here to be a part of serving this Earth school. I
yeah,
do kind of believe in both, but the background people is kind of a little bit of a dangerous idea because people already struggle with compassion and being
yeah,
compassionate for others who are real people with real souls and real struggles. So I don't talk too much about it like on my main stuff because obviously those videos, if you talk about something negative, that's the video that gets millions of views always. So I try not to because I know if I did, that would probably be like one that blows up, and then I have to deal with all of the negativity that comes from it, like my Prison Planet video. And but I feel like it could be a little dangerous if people kind of acknowledge that maybe not every single person has a soul and a purpose,
yeah.
because I mean, people aren't even compassionate for their neighbor.
Mhm.
but the NPC thing has been a little out of control lately because it kind of seems like they're glitching out lately, right?
Yeah. And I've had some really weird experiences with, I don't know, what if you want to call it an NPC or you want to call it a background person or just the Matrix in general, but I've had experience. So one experience that I had, I was working security for this casino area, and it's connected to our main stadium downtown where our NHL team plays and all this stuff. And before every game, we would have like a rush of people that would come into, because it was a bar and a restaurant and also the casino. So we'd have a whole bunch of people come in. And then right it before the game starts, the whole outside area, which is connected, it's all an inside thing. And you go out here and then whatever. So there's a whole bunch of like hundreds, thousands of people walking through this area. And there would be like three or four of the security guards, and we'd be standing out, kind of making sure that there's no problems. And I remember watching specifically tuning into this dad and his son, and watching them walk past me and then walk into the area of the arena. And by the time I turned my head back, they were there again. The
Mm.
exact same pair of people, the same dad and the son. I can hear their conversation, same conversation. And like I'm seeing videos now where people are pranking people like this,
Oh, really?
where they're like, well, yeah, where they're like, I guess there's twins. There's like a couple of sets of twins that are
Oh,
pranking people where they come up and they say something weird and they walk away and the same twin comes up and says the same thing and the people are like, what in the world was that?
oh, that's
But
so
this is different. Like this is like
fun.
a dad and a son, like a little boy and his dad, and like nothing. I don't know. It's just so weird. And then I've also seen. Um, this was years ago. I was walking over a bridge, and I remember looking to my left over the bridge where it kind of goes under. There's like a walk path that goes underneath, and I remember seeing this woman in a yellow coat walking her dog, and it was just out of the corner of my eye, and I kind of looked over and glanced and looked back, and then when I looked back, she was gone.
Mm.
And I was like, what the heck was that? Like where did she go? And when I look back again, she came out from under the bridge again, but she had walked enough that she shouldn't have just like, I don't know. I've seen some weird things with people where I'm like, how did that happen? Did I
It
just
really
have
does.
like
I
some
had
kind of
one in my hallway yesterday or the day before yesterday, and my neighbor was just like, a neighbor that I've never seen before was just like frozen. And I was like, oh, you scared me. And the person made no reaction, that they just were still frozen. So then I was like, oh gosh, I kept walking. And then as I was like going down the stairs, I like did like a quick look back, and then they started walking, and I was like, fuck just happened? But
yeah.
I wonder if that's also, obviously part of the awareness. As we become more aware, even my friend was telling me last night, we were hanging out, he was like, did you see that Karen video that looked like an NPC? That basically like the Karen says something to someone like they do, and then he says it, then she like goes and kind of like walks in like a weird circle and is like, and I'm like, I don't know. I've had this discussion before on a TikTok live with Parapsych Talk, and we were like, are the Karens real people, or are the Karens a projection of the collective? Is like, are basically people creating Karens with their perception of what the world is? Or are the Karens actual real people with real souls?
Probably both.
Some of both. I
Yeah.
that first Karen, that first Karen that destroyed the entire dimension. She's destroyed the entire third dimension. You know who I'm talking about. The one that
Yeah.
was in Central Park with the guy
Yeah.
who was bird watching, and then she pretends that she's like getting attacked by him or whatever, and she's doing the call. That woman, was the demise of the entire world. The second that that woman called the cops on that guy watching birds in Central Park for telling her to put her dog on a leash, everything collapsed. The lockdowns, the economy, the world, reality, time, money. There was no toilet paper left. She destroyed the world. One Karen. And I'm like, that woman literally was the catalyst for everything.
The
She's the
apocalypse
worst.
Karen.
Yeah, she was the original Karen. Like the original Sin, the original Karen.
That's
Everything
funny.
was cursed after that.
Also, with the what you said about with how Dolores explains the background people as like prisoner souls, kind of just
Well, then
here
she
to.
doesn't say that. She re-explains it and says,
Right.
"Oh, I think that was just like an interpretation that the person was having." She totally disexplains what that person said, but the person under hypnosis said that they were like an enslaved energy.
Yeah. What makes the first thing that comes to my head when I hear that is like literally the Matrix, where people are plugged in and they're like their physical bodies are stuck, but their energy, their soul is kind of in this program running. And so when I hear that kind of depiction of it, that's like the first thing that comes to my head is that these souls that were kind of brought here into
Mm-hmm.
this Matrix program to just like be a body essentially, and not I don't know. It's a weird thing that I've definitely thought about, and like you said, it's a dangerous thought too, because
It
there's
is.
some there's some deranged people out there that'll take a thought like that and just think, oh, none of my actions, none of my words, they don't
I
matter because these
know.
people aren't real.
So that's the thing too that
So
I had this conversation with a friend the other day about that exact topic because she watched that Hulu documentary called Glitch in the Matrix, and I don't know if anyone has seen it. I was like, and I can always tell when someone finished it or only watched half, because if someone only watched half, they're like, that was really interesting. If someone watched the whole thing, they're like, what the hell was that? Because there's a certain point, and it's not too much of a spoiler because it's kind of what you're saying, which is basically, and it's a documentary kind of about the Matrix and the simulation and all of that. And at a certain point, they talk about this one specific case where I guess this guy got really into the Matrix, and then he started to believe that this was a Matrix, so he killed his whole family. And it's like, and then so me and her started having this conversation about it because she was like, kind of just about like the stuff that I'm trying to teach people. A lot of it is about like kind of hacking the matrix type stuff to create a dimensional shift. And she kind of like wanted me to like be aware of like, maybe you should address that there's a lot of people who get that information. And for some reason, their first thought is like, okay, should I kill someone? Like I don't understand. And then I was like, you know what? You're right. Some people, and I was thinking about it and I'm like, damn, there's actually like a lot of different things where I can think of stories like that. And I'm like, huh, that goes back to not being heart centered, which was my biggest takeaway from that glitch in the matrix, because it mostly is kind of interviewing gamer guys, not people who are like looking at it only from like a spiritual perspective or a bigger perspective. They're kind of looking at it as life is a video game, which is a good
yeah,
description to help people understand, but it's different because all of these people are programmed to think that video games are for killing, you
yeah,
know? So that probably also plays into it, is that this whole idea of a simulation is so connected to like shooting games
yeah,
and war and all of this negative stuff. So I'm like, maybe that is part of the reason maybe people are kind of programs that like, oh, if people aren't real, then I should hurt things. And
yeah,
I feel like that's like, and I was like, wow, that's really interesting because it's not where I would think of. If I think we can control anything, I'm like, well, then we could have an amazing planet where everyone has whatever they need and we all could be happy and no one has to work at a job that they hate. Like that's what I want when I think this is a matrix and we could do anything we want. That's where I go. But you're right. There's some people who go to this dangerous place where, oh, okay, maybe these people don't have souls, or maybe it's going to reset or something. And I think that's something that, coming up in like some of my videos that I'm going to start talking about it a little more. I was like, you know what, I think I'm going to address that because obviously my friend brought that up for a reason. Um, and it is something that for some reason people have that reaction. And I don't know if
Yeah, I
it's the
don't get
video
it.
game.
It's got to, there's a lot, I think there's a lot of things that play into it. There's a lot of the social conditioning.
Yeah.
Kids at a very young age are playing like he's teabagging each other, and it's like, like what? Like,
Yeah.
nothing again. Do what you're gonna do and have fun, whatever. But like, when then it gets to that point where look at how many school incidences there are where kids are going to school and doing crazy things. Um, the number of those incidences is
Yeah.
climbing rapidly, constantly. And I don't think that that's just a
And I
coincidence.
think
I
there's
think
a
I mean,
lot
you
of
look at
factors.
yeah, there's so many different things. There's like kids nowadays are like super like there's a lot of depression and anxiety and then like video games and movies and it's just there's a lot of things that are playing a factor into a lot of that but
And the
yeah,
medications.
oh
I
my
mean,
god.
that's kind of, I know it gets a little crazy, but if you really
Yeah.
look at all these people who have done these mass events,
All of them.
most of them are on the same medication.
Yeah.
I mean,
The
Prozac is
antipsychotics
known
are
to cause rage. And if you look, almost every single person who has done one of those things is on either that specific medication or one other specific medication. And I'm like, what's really going on here? And then people always say stuff too, like, oh, well, oh, you take your medication. I'm like, you're lucky people don't take medication sometimes because, and I mean, I have a weird stalker situation, which has been going on for like 8 years. It's so dramatic and so much, and I won't talk about it here because I don't know, he'll probably see it. But uh,
it doesn't sound
no,
good.
no, it's so dramatic and so much. It's been going on since like 2014. It's so bad. And long before ever TikTok or anything. And yeah, it's been going on. It's not someone that I know. He lives in a different state. I've never met him. I don't know him. And there was one point where he got off his medication and he sent me some very sound emails. The only messages that I ever got from him that were completely fully coherent, and he was like, please, like, I'm off my medication and I realize that you've never responded to me in all these years. Please tell me if you don't want me. Obviously I didn't want to answer because you know
Yeah.
uh you know
It's
it's kind of a
one thing
trap.
leads
If
to
you answer at
another.
that point, then they're really never going to stop. um
Yeah.
but then he went back on medication and all the crazy stuff started again, and I was like, wow, that was really like scary to me because I was like, wow, he was a completely different person and he's much worse when he's on it.
Yeah. Yeah, the I was talking to a friend today about anxiety and depression and like a lot of the things. Prozac is typically prescribed for depression. It's also like antipsychotic stuff, but a lot of anxiety and depression, and I've dealt with both, but a lot of them stem from living in the past or the future.
Hmm.
You're
Hmm.
worried about something that's not happened yet in the future, or whatever certain like outcome is going to happen from this, or things that have happened to you already, and you're still holding on to those things. And I mean that doesn't really account for
Yeah, either exactly
chemical
something that has
imbalances
happened
in
or
the brain
something
and stuff.
you're afraid of happening.
Yeah, and like obviously there are chemical imbalances and stuff like that, and I don't I'm with you, and I'm on board on the the medication thing causing a lot of issues. I've seen some
Hmm.
pretty interesting things in that regard. I've known some people who have taken those things, and it never ends well. It just gets worse. And
Someone here, this is a little off topic, but she's asked a couple times. she's talking about the Mandela effect, and she's asking, like, it's hard for her to believe the Mandela effect because she believes that all of the examples are based in America. I mean, for one, the Mandela effect is, Nelson Mandela, South Africa. So it's not everything, but one of the things too, I think that just comes up with that. A lot of people are like, well, why is it always pop culture? It's not always pop culture. It's just how often are you going to talk to someone about a memory from childhood or something? So we probably are having Mandela effects within our personal life, but how do you get any validation that anything has changed? Because you still have your memory and you don't have anyone to bounce it off of. So, of course, it's going to be pop culture that millions of people have been impacted by to be able to see that pattern. Because a lot of times people are like, well, why doesn't it happen with other stuff? And it's like, it probably does all the time, but unless you talk to someone from childhood and go over everything that you guys experienced together, how would you know if they
Yeah.
have a different memory of something? And the pop culture stuff is because those impacted so many people.
Yeah.
Everyone watched those movies. And I think the reason why it's very American based, and it's not really American, but like North American, because you're in Canada, so um, it's obviously the same exact stuff that you guys watched. And I think a lot of times people just because it's American culture, it's considered, is because I'm sure there's movies in Bollywood that have weird Mandela effect stuff, but there's not the same range of people who have had that experience to discuss whether that was ever in the movie or not.
Mm. Have you heard of the connection between CERN and the Mandela effect?
Oh yeah. So I have a couple theories. I did a Mandela effect series,
Yeah.
and uh I do believe CERN is part of it, but I actually gave like three or four theories, and the other theories that I believe in, I feel like CERN is a part, it's not the whole of it. One is that there is time wars going on. There are beings that are manipulating our timelines from the future to have the results that they want. So there's outside sources doing it. There's, according to some things, some government agencies that manipulate timelines. And the other theory that I probably the most assigned to is that the universe has a solid strain of time, which is part of the infinite plan of the creator of the whole universal plan. And basically, you can stray off of that, but when your timeline fails, you'll be merged back into the original. So that's what I think it is too, is that there's some failed timelines that we were on previously. So now we've merged back into a successful timeline.
I've got some weird. Uh, it's like deja vu almost. I don't know how to explain this. I have a theory that I have died quite a few
Mm.
times. Uh, my 20s were filled with a lot of things that um, I shouldn't be here. We'll say.
Yeah.
I partied very hard and
And I feel that's
did some
very
things.
common in the people like
Yeah,
this that are into this stuff. A lot of them pushed the limits of their life at an early age, myself included.
yeah. There's quite a few instances. I won't get into it because it's probably not TikTok appropriate, but there's quite a few instances where I probably shouldn't be here, and I'm almost like I'm very convinced that in that timeline I'm gone. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that there's a certain when your soul agrees to be here and do certain things within this body, this vessel, I think that because there are an infinite amount of timelines, um, when one body fails, the consciousness shifts to the timeline directly next to it, and you just
Mm.
wake up and keep going. So I have these experiences where I've Googled this, and Google told me that I have BPD, but
Oh, yeah,
or it's this is a, this is a
gosh.
very common symptom of BPD apparently. But I have these experiences where, let's say I'm walking up to a street corner and I forget to look. There's no lights, there's no stop signs or anything. I forget to look. I step out. What'll happen is in this, I guess in this whatever timeline I've continued on, I'm fine. But I have these instances, these moments where I get schmucked, and
Wow.
I can feel it, I can envision it, I can like it's like I have this like quick snap of something that's happened, but it hasn't actually happened. And today,
Wow.
it's actually happened today. I was driving with my daughter to go to the zoo, and there was a yellow light, and my instinct, like I wanted to hit the gas and go through the yellow light, but I ended up hitting the brake instead, and I came to a stop. And if I had gone through that yellow light, there was a guy on a bike coming out of the park, and
Wow.
if I had gone through that yellow light and I had sped up, I would have schmucked him. And
Wow.
as I'm coming up to that stop at this from this yellow light to a red light, and I see this guy, I'm like, I have this like vision of it happening where it's like I'm actually on that timeline and I'm experiencing it. And then I can like fast forward in my mind
Mm.
the life that would continue on had that timeline played out.
Wow.
It's hard to describe properly, but it's very vivid and it happens a lot where I'm like peeking into another timeline.
So, do you ever wake up in a different timeline? Because I know a lot of people who have more psychic abilities. A lot of people that I know have had this experience where sometimes they wake up and it's not their house, it's not their life. They're like with a partner that they don't even know. And then they'll kind of fight to wake up again. And it's like a dream within a dream, but so real where they felt like was I just in a different timeline? Why did I know where I was and who those people were?
Yeah. I don't know. I can't say that I've ever like I feel like I've always been me, but I've definitely had very
Well, that's the
vivid
thing. My friend,
dreams
they've
that are
been them. So it's their
yeah.
themselves, but their life is different. Their house is different. One of my friends, she woke up, she had a husband and a baby. And then she was really like fighting to wake up. And then she woke
Yeah.
up in her real bed and she was like, oh my God, what was that? She was like, why did I have a whole. And she was like, it wasn't a dream. Like it felt like I really woke up in a different life.
Yeah. I don't maybe it's possible. In my waking life, I definitely feel like I have those peeking into other timeline moments. I've had dreams like my dream world is very intense. I'm very lucid in my dreams a lot. Um and I have like another life in the astral realm where I'm assuming that it's another timeline, but it's like I'm still me kind of, and I still know certain people that are in my life now, but there's just like such crazy like there's like they went a completely different direction in life. And
Wow.
it's interesting the dream world that I often visit. I'm like I live in like this like super ghetto area. I'm always running from police. I'm like it's interesting. It's still
It's
my
kind of like
city.
if that other timeline of the things that you were doing before, if you would have stayed on that timeline, what you'd be doing.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, definitely. And like it's still my city, but it looks kind of different and the people are kind of different and like my relationship with those people that I know are kind of different. But at the same
Mm,
time it's like it's very familiar and like yeah, I don't know, it's
it's wild.
I wonder now I'm wondering if my mind is swirling with the idea of maybe I was in a different timeline yesterday. I woke up in this
Maybe.
timeline now.
Actually, a lot of people are commenting that they've experienced either the same thing with dreams. One girl, she said that it was up there, but she said that she was told she had a psychotic breakdown when she woke up and had a different life. She was shocked to hear us talking about this. A lot of other people saying that they've had these same experiences with dreams. Uh, wow. I mean, that's amazing. But I feel like I've been hearing about it a lot in the last, basically since 2020. Since 2020,
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people telling me, like, this is going to sound weird, but I think I was in a different timeline. And so I've never really had that type of experience. The one thing that I have that's a little weird is like sometimes it happened to me the two times that I like astral projected successfully. Which I did like a whole process, I did a whole detox and cleanse, and that's the reason I don't just try it. Anytime I'm going to do any type of spiritual thing, I really like clean my body, make sure that I'm like eating like raw, just because I feel like it's so disrespectful. Like imagine doing DMT and seeing the beings and you're just like, oh, I'm high. It's like I feel like it's so disrespectful. So like
I've
whenever I
done
try to
that.
do but
I've
like
unfortunately
imagine the
I've done that.
beings.
I've
Imagine how the
I've I've
beings
mended.
feel with all of these
Yeah.
people like and it's like, come on, it's insulting to the beings. They got better stuff to do than a bunch of drunk and high people coming in. And
And
like,
that's why a lot of people see the jesters. The jesters are kind of like they're like,
what
"Oh,
is
you
jesters?
want to play around?" The jesters are a common DMT entity that a lot of people see. And it's literally
Oh.
the same thing where these like crazy, like evil looking jesters just dancing around you and there's hundreds of them and they're like, "Ooh." So a lot of people who go in, they're just partying and they're like, "Yeah, let's smoke some DMT." They get the jesters. The jesters are like, "Okay, we'll give you a taste, but we're gonna play with you since you just want to play
Uh,
around."
since you're just
So
coming
they don't get the
here for a
full.
little fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
wow. I've actually never heard about the jesters. I always hear about people kind of coming to like a council type of thing. Like there's
Mm.
kind of like some type of council. Um, the Joker the same as the Fool in the tarot deck. Oh wow, yeah. So the one thing that happens to me when I did the astral travel, I traveled to the Akashic records. This was before I knew how to open them and read them. So I was like, well, how do I get to the Akashic records? I guess I have to astral travel there. And so during that, and I also posted about this, it's like a long thing on my YouTube if you guys want to see the my Akashic records astral projection experience. It's very interesting. But there would be a certain point whenever I would finally get my book that was of my life. Every time I would look at the book, I would then wake up in my I would fall asleep completely and then wake up like, oh man, like what happened? But the weird thing is that as I'm like waking up, I'm like in another place. And this has happened to me a couple times in dreams where like I'm waking up from a dream, but I don't.
Yeah.
And every time that this happens, I'm seeing out of my own eyes, like regular life, how I see out of my own eyes, and I'm fainting. And it's always like I've fainted, and people, sometimes I know them, sometimes I don't know them. They're like, "Oh my God, are you okay? You fell. Are you like?" I can literally, I'm like trying to open my eyes, and it's like I can see them, but I keep like seeing my eyes not being able to fully open. And then as I fully get my eyes open, I'll open them in real life. But it's like this weird thing that has happened to me several times where I'll be kind of like either in between the dream state or it was when I was coming back from astral projection. And when I was in astral projection one, it was kind of like I was in like a meeting with people that I knew, some people that I knew in real life, some people that I didn't know that I just knew of.
Yeah.
And I like fainted in this meeting and I saw myself like from my eyes fall back onto the floor and then people like come over me over my body and they're like, oh my God, are you okay? She fainted, somebody get water. And it's weird because that's kind of the only in between thing. And sometimes I wonder, I'm like, is that like something like happened in another timeline? Like because what's happening now like caused me to faint in another timeline? And I've
Mm.
actually had a few times in my life that I've fainted for real. mostly when I was younger and, doing all types of crazy stuff and not taking care of myself. Those crazy nights you'll faint. And but every time I fainted, I've had kind of the same experience that happens in those dreams where I'm kind of like aware and people are kind of like, "Oh my god, are you okay?" And I'm like, I can't fully like open my eyes. And so it's interesting that that has been also my real experience in those rare times that it's happened in my life. So it makes me think, those times that I fainted,
Mhm.
was it something in another timeline that happened? Like, it's so
Definitely
weird.
possible.
And
Yeah,
you
I
never
think
think
that
about that when you're younger.
no. I think that we're constantly shifting timelines. And I actually I made a quick video about this the other day about like I know people who, and this is like the Mandela effect thing, and when we're talking about personal experiences, I know people whose personal experiences differ. We went through the same things, but our memories are different. The events that
So
took
you've
place are
experienced
different.
Mandela effects in your personal life, not just on the
Yeah.
collective level.
Yeah. And like even world events, people I know people who remember world events differently, like political events and like all sorts of stuff. And I find that the there's a when if somebody's like, "Oh, I remember this being this way," there's a lot of pushback where people are like, "No, no, that didn't happen that way. That's wrong."
Hmm.
And in the video, I'm explaining like we're constantly shifting timelines. Each of us, we each have like my timeline right now. Like we're sharing a timeline. Me and you right now are sharing a timeline where we're creating something that we're going to remember years from now, but we could also end up on different timelines where world events are different, where things are happening differently, but we still remember something similar from the time that we shared this timeline
Hmm.
together. So if like for me, I'm just like, okay, I'm going to have compassion for these people who don't remember the same thing that I do because I'm aware that they probably were on a different timeline and we're just sharing this timeline now together. And yeah, it's there's so many times that I've seen people just like get into it over like this didn't
Oh,
happen or this didn't happen, and it's like, come on,
no one
just
is
let it
more
go.
aggressive than the people who were originally on this timeline. Like in the comments, the people who were originally on this timeline are so aggressive. They're like, "You're an idiot. Don't you know the Fruit of the Loom never had a cornucopia?" I'm like, "Don't be so cocky because this is your original timeline, okay?" Don't be so cocky about it. Um,
One of the
so the
ones
first
that
time I
blew
kind of
my mind.
what?
Go ahead. You go ahead.
Uh, the first time I kind of remember someone telling me something along the lines of a Mandela effect before I even knew what that was, my friend was just, it was a personal thing. She told me that when she was younger, she had this really bad injury. Um, and she clearly remembers it. It was an impactful day of her life because she got very hurt and a lot of people were scared. And and she was like, as an adult, she mentioned it and her parents are like, "Oh, that's not what happened. You were at school. It happened at school." She's like, "No, it happened here in the house. My friend was here." So then she calls the friend and she's like, "Wait, like, do you remember when, like, whatever it was?" She like busted her head, like, and like needed stitches and stuff. And she was like, they were like, the friend was like, "Yeah, it happened at school." And she's like, "No, and everyone's like, "No, it's because you hit your head. You only remember coming home after." She's like, "No, I literally remember I was looking in the mirror when it happened." And she, I guess, was like playing with makeup or something when she was a kid and she was looking in the mirror and something happened and she fell and she like cracked her head and was like a whole thing. And she was like, everyone was like, "No, you got hurt at school. It wasn't at home. You weren't looking in the mirror." And so she's always like, "You guys, I know what happened to me because I have the vivid memory of it happening to me." And then when like I learned about the Mandela effect, I was like, "Wow, do you think that's what happened? Do you think everyone else had like, you're on a different timeline than what those people were originally on?"
She could have
At the same
also,
time, it's a kid who hit their head, so then everyone's like, "No, you're just a kid who hit your head."
yeah. She could have also ceased to exist on that timeline and just shifted to another one where the injury happened differently, and that's
And
because
some
like
of
I've
the thing
got
that mirrors are portals, which is true too.
yeah
It's interesting. I didn't think about that this happened while she was looking in the mirror.
yeah. There's that one. There's like techniques that you can use to like quantum shift, quantum jump, or whatever, using mirrors and stuff too.
I've heard of them. I'm a little cautious of those type of methods just because I don't know what I'm in general cautious of practicing things. I think it's also because,
Mhm.
I told you I have a lot of that like black magic stuff in my family. So like anyone in my
Yeah,
family that kind of dabbles in magic, shit goes down. Like that there's some entities that are watching over the bloodline like, yes,
yeah,
yes, do it. you know? And everyone in my family, anytime we kind of like do something, it's like literally there's shit goes down. So I personally am very, and also because of some of the stuff that I saw growing up, I feel like I'm a little bit more protective about that type of stuff. But I have seen that those methods that people use mirrors to shift timelines.
yeah, yeah. With the with the magic stuff, it definitely takes practice and like kind of knowing what you're doing with what energies and stuff like that to feel confident in it. And there's definitely, if you don't know what you're doing, you can definitely bring in some chaotic things. So
And I think there's a
yeah,
lot
if
of
you're
different things with it. There's different lineages, different types of magic, different types of DNA that is connected to different beings or different uh, entities, you know. And I do believe that sometimes, like, if someone in the family works with a certain entity, that entity kind of watches that bloodline to see who else in that bloodline will work with it. So sometimes
yeah,
you'll have a entity connection from a grandmother or a great grandmother or something, and then they kind of like will watch over to see because they've had a success with working with that person.
yeah,
Sorry, my
yeah, it
neighbor's
definitely
dog
runs in the
literally
blood.
barks all day long. He was actually good for most of this.
Do they just don't bring it inside or what?
No, the poor thing has never been inside, and he's vicious because his only way to serve his owner is to bark at everything that walks by because he's like an outside guard dog.
Mm,
Which who does that anymore, especially in LA? Who
yeah,
doesn't
that's
take
weird.
dogs inside? Hello.
I have
Barbarian.
I have a Pomeranian Chihuahua. It's a
Oh.
small dog. She looks like a little fox. She's
Oh.
very protective, very like she barks. But if somebody comes into the house, she's like rated their feet and like barking at them and not aggressive, but like, who are you? Why are you in my house? Kind of thing. But as soon as you sit down and show her attention, she's like hugs and kisses and she's all
Oh.
over and yeah.
The
I
small
want a
dogs have
golden
to really
retriever.
assert themselves.
Yes. They don't have much bite, so they got to have a lot of bark.
Oh. I love little chihuahuas. I mean, I love
Yeah,
all
very
dogs,
cute.
but I love little chihuahuas. I love how like nasty they are. Like when they get nasty, they're like, yeah. I'm like, I love it. I just think it's the cutest thing ever.
My dog does the funniest thing where like I have two cats as well, and if the cats are being bad, like if they're scratching furniture or they're like getting into something, my dog will tattle on them, come run over to me and like tell me what's going on basically, and then run over and like stop them from doing whatever they're doing if she can get to them.
She's like, look what the
It's the
cats are
fun-
doing.
yeah, and it's the funniest thing too. If the cat comes into the room and is doing something bad, and she's sitting beside me, she'll look at me and she'll start growling, and I'll hold her. And I do this thing where I'm like, hold her back, and she starts like
Oh.
getting all riled up and crazy, and then she'll go and run after the cat, and, like boop it with its nose, like don't do that. It's like, but
Aw.
she gets so intense when I'm like holding her. I'm like, hold her back, okay, go. And then she just bolts, and it's It's so funny, it's so cute.
They love it, you know. They love part of their purpose is they want to please their owners, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, she's my little familiar. My I also have a cat named Hades, who's very much a familiar. I love Greek mythology. Everything is Greek mythology. My dog's name is Estrella. My
Oh
cat's name is
wow.
Hades. I had a dog named Zeus.
Oh
Um,
cool.
yeah, so it's and my daughter's name is Andromeda. It's all Greek mythology.
I love it.
Yeah,
So we're coming up on like 2.5 hours. It went so fast.
it
Does
did.
anyone want to ask any final questions? If you see anything on your side that you want to answer, someone says many times they are our guardians. I do believe that. The dogs
100%.
and animals, I do believe it. Someone on my
Cats are
side
the
asked, what did you say about cats?
cats are the shadow like the spirit protectors, and dogs are the physical protectors.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest cat person. When I was younger, I literally my only hobby was playing with stray cats and bugs. Those were my two hobbies when I was younger, was playing with bugs and cats that were strays. But as an adult, I'm not that connected to cats. I'm kind of like, don't walk on everything. I'm like, don't walk on the
Get your
counter.
get your butt off of that.
Yeah, literally. That's like, but they're still so cute. And I mean, I love all animals. Someone's
Yeah.
asking, when is my next series coming? Very soon. I'm gonna do a series, a soul series. So I'm gonna kind of bring it back to the basics: karma, reincarnation, life selection, soul purpose. Kind of go back to the heart of it all. You know, I think that's important.
I've got
Anything you want to answer?
not really. There's a whole bunch of people who have just kind of chimed in throughout the conversation. Stuff about Dolores Cannon. There's stuff about the Mandela effect. Not really any questions, just people sharing experiences. I don't even know if these people are still in here.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah, that was a
Well,
very fast 2.5 hours.
oh my God, it goes so fast. Like it's crazy. Someone's asking, when do you think the new Earth split will happen? Um,
Huh?
I think it's already beginning. I think a lot of these glitches and stuff is part of that. And I also think that there will be a bigger shift, but I think a lot of people are not going to perceive it. A lot of people are going to just shift without realizing. I feel that only, at least this is what like Dolores talks about, is that the people that are working toward it are going to know that it has happened, but that there's going to be millions of people who did not work towards it, who are kind of just like, things worked out, huh? And they're not fully aware of what happened. And there were people who were just, you know, on a high vibe, but not on a spiritual, awakened, conscious path, because you don't necessarily, because people ask that about kids all the time. They're like, well, the kids can't understand this. Are they going to not shift because they can't understand the information? No, you just have to like give them unconditional love. Anyone who's in a state of unconditional love is going to be totally fine if there's a dimensional shift to a higher consciousness.
Yeah, I've also there's a perception that the shift into the 5D consciousness is like a physical everything, like you're gonna pop into a new world immediately, but it's um I find that the shift is a consciousness shift, right? You're shifting from the
Mhm.
third dimensional state of consciousness where everything is it's very physical, everything is very like linear, and then the shift into 5D is where your consciousness is more aligned spiritually, and things are, people are realizing psychic abilities, and
Mhm.
just going through that awakening process, and within that awakening process, moving into the fifth dimensional state of consciousness, we are able to manifest a better world. because the
Hmm.
collective consciousness is stronger. What create the world that we live in is totally created and manifested by our collective consciousness. And for a very long time, the collective consciousness was very dense, very low vibrational, and it was like lots of war and fighting and hate and all this stuff. And now, with the shift happening with more and more people, we are actively manifesting a more beautiful world. And the more people that wake up and join us, the stronger that manifestation becomes and the faster that manifestation becomes.
Hmm.
Everyone physically, everyone physically will be a part of the shift and the new world that is created. But more people, there's going to be people who aren't there, like you said, they're not there spiritually, and there's going to be people who are more there spiritually, who are the ones that are the anchors that are manifesting and pulling in
Yeah.
that light.
Who are the big manifestors of it. And exactly. And there'll be a lot of people. And I feel like there will be obviously some people who don't shift, but that's like we were talking about earlier. Every soul has the decision to make. And there will be some people who don't want to be a part of the shift. And that is their choice. It is their free will. And you do have to respect it. So sometimes people are like, oh, I don't know, this person doesn't want to change. They don't want to like better themselves, but I'm concerned. What if I shift and they don't shift? It's not something to worry about because you're not really then manifesting the world that you want to live in. You're now manifesting the fear that this person isn't going to shift with you. So it's not the thing to focus on. And you just know that everyone's soul knows what's right for them. And we have to always respect their decision, no matter what that decision is.
I
I
agree
love it.
fully.
Yeah, some people aren't meant to stay on your
So
journey. I agree.
I love connecting with fellow creators and like-minded people. Oh, I think I'm I'm chopping. I'm losing my internet connection. I don't
You
know if you can
did.
still hear
You
me.
did chop
Give
up
me
for
two
a
seconds
second.
here. Reconnecting here. But yeah, so I love connecting with like minds. I love talking to you. Super fun. I think that we should definitely do another live sometime
I know.
soon,
Let's do it.
and just shoot the shit and talk
I know.
about
This
these
is
awesome
great.
topics. And
This will be on my
yeah, it's
YouTube.
cool.
I
I
don't know if
love that.
do you have a YouTube?
I do. I'm not super active on it. I was more active a couple years ago. I kind of here and there upload YouTube shorts, just recycling my TikTok content. But I want to start doing YouTube again.
Nice. Well, this
Um,
will probably, I
I
don't know
just
if you're
need the
going to
time
add
for
it.
editing.
If you're going to add it to your YouTube also, I'm going to add it to mine. I'll download it and put it on there for anyone who wanted to see the full thing if you missed part of it. And then yeah, maybe you'll put it on yours too.
Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah,
It's a good idea.
it is.
Sweet. Okay, well, let's stay connected and let's do another live sometime soon.
I will. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone for your questions and being here. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good night. Bye.
Peace.